You know what time it is? It's time for another episode of Badger Mailbag, where we reach into our enormous sack and answer more of your letters. So pull up a chair, strap yourselves in, and make sure that the sentences are spaced into paragraphs. Seriously, I can't stress that enough. It's just... Join the Honey Badgers as we answer more of your letters. And welcome to the show, because today the segment is you. It's all about you. Right now. Allison.
All right, yes, I'm here. And also, if you want to come on the show for our call-in segment, please tweet to @honeybadgerbite. That is @honeybadgerbite. And if you want to get in contact with us, send a message to topic@badgerpod.com.
Our sack is so happy.
Yes, if you send us a message in the last hour, it's unlikely that it will be read, because it has to be cut off at some point and processed through the sack. Yeah. Oh no. All right. Okay, first of all, we got some shills. Hey, Honey Badgers. I love your work to death. Anyways, I do think that you discussed this about a few weeks ago, but I just wanted to touch upon this once again. There's now a petition at change.org. change.org/p/justice-for-Zachary-Anderson and a Facebook page that I think it's important to bring to everyone's attention. Also, if I'm mistaken, and you did not cover this before, I think it's an important topic to discuss, even if it's a little old. Thank you all. Keep up the good work, and know that as soon as I have some disposable income, I'll definitely find a way to support you. That's a promise. Well, thank you for that promise. Justice for Zachary Anderson. Essentially, a 19-year-old young man met a girl through an app. And she lied about her age. She said she was 17, and it turned out she was 14. And he has to be on the sex offender registry for, I think, 25 years. And it actually, even the girl's parents tried to plead with the judge to drop the charges, but instead he or she decided to throw the book at him. So yeah, the petition is up to about over 200,000 signatures. So if you want to be, I guess, 200,222, whatever, then go and sign it. It's actually probably pretty important, because this is a pretty egregious breach of justice. And then the next shill is, the Tardia Foundation has made an inquiry. That is TARDIA. Dear Badgers, inspired by your amazing work, our tiny totalitarian cult started making videos and podcasts on different social and political issues affecting post-USSR countries. One of those videos dealt with the draft, and one of our followers asked us really hard to make English subtitles for it and send it to you in case you find its perspective interesting. Thanks in advance, and feel free to put any of our ideas into any of your shows, talks, interviews, or whatever. The video is here. Don't forget to switch subs on. Smiley face. So the video is at the Tardia Foundation on YouTube. Once again, that's TARDIA. And thank you for sending that in. I personally have not watched it because we get a lot of mail, but I send it out to our listeners. I'm sure it's informative. Will's Eye View has made an inquiry. Dear Honey Badgers, I was just curious if you would plug my book, The Prophecy of Three, The Oracle's Warning, on one of your shows. Apparently you can go to Amazon.com and look up Prophecy 3, Oracle's Warning, and find the ebook. I haven't personally read it, so I don't know its merits, but if you send me a shill, I'll shill. And finally, from our very own Mad Cat, Gigi in Phoenix will be on August 29th, that's this weekend, and if you're interested in attending, please contact Gigi Mad_cat, that's @Gigi Mad_cat on Twitter, or check out the hashtag GGInPHX. So there you go. If you're in the Phoenix area, or wherever is reasonable to go from in Arizona to get to Phoenix, then consider contacting Mad Cat about the meetup on the 29th. All right, let's get to the first email. Oh, actually, this is a thanks. Pressure Coacher says the following. Hey, Badgers, I saw your live stream after SPJ Airplay, Society of Professional Journalists Airplay, and I wanted to pay Karen a compliment. Karen, you have nice legs in those jeans shorts you are wearing. I'm not going to lie, those legs of yours got me aroused. Hashtag catcalling. Have a great show. Well, bad timing, because Karen isn't really on the show, at least not in the beginning for this one. Hopefully she'll come back, and maybe I can reread that for her. Until that time, I guess she's dead to us, and so are her legs.
Can you like tab it or like highlight it or something when she comes back?
Yeah, probably could. It depends on whether or not I want to make the effort. I'll decide later on. Viper Sword writes, "Hi Badgers, I love your show and listen to it every chance I get, either when I'm getting ready for work or while I'm playing on the Xbox. I'd just like to say, keep up the good work. Your shows give me the feeling that the world isn't falling into the insanity that is social justice. Keep up the ranting, joking, and intellectual discussions. I love it all." Well, thank you, Viper Sword. We love that you love it, and I guess that makes it sort of a daisy chain. Daniel writes, "Hoy, regarding what will accomplish equality on the sexual marketplace, it will be the male pill, i.e. any surefire way for men to control their reproductivity that cannot be seen and that only they control. Reason being that it will remove the ability of women to enforce relationships by actual or deliberate accidents, including the knowledge of having that opportunity. It will be a hard battle to get the male pill, as many women will not want men to have it, but the keep your laws opinions off my body might help there. Essentially copy the whole abortion pro-choice narrative, turning it from best interest of the child to not know it was created in an affair, preventing paternity tests, to best interest of the child to know the actual father, genetic risks, drugs that are allowed, etc. And once men control whether the women they sleep with get pregnant, all women will have no choice but to work for their relationship. You know, like equal parties. I hope. Best regards, Daniel." So I'm going to throw this one out. Who wants to take a swing at that one, discussing that one?
Well, there is one clarification that needs to be made. That the male pill that was being researched previously kind of turned out to be unfeasible for biological reasons between men and the way the pill worked. Feminists opposed it before it was known, but there is now something under investigation. I think it's pronounced Vasalgel. It might be Vasalgel. It's Vasalgel, and that actually is looking like it's going to be feasible. It looks like they're actually having some good results with their research. The organization to look at is called the Parsemus Foundation. It's spelled Parsemus Foundation. They have their own website, and it'll explain more about the product. It's a polymer contraceptive. Contraceptive. It gets injected, and it blocks and is spermicidal, and it can be removed. And after it's removed, after a short period of time, you revert to normal fertility again. So it's actually, I don't think feminists are going to be able to put a stop to this. It's going to happen. It's just going to be a matter of time.
All right, thanks, Hannah. So
it always sort of blows my mind that when I bring up the absence of a male pill, and I'm talking to not just feminists actually, but like feminist supporters, and I ask them, well, why do you think there isn't a male pill? And the answer they usually give us was because men don't want it. No other sort of medicine has ever given the excuse, well, the people who don't want it, their will outweighs the people who do want it for some bizarre reason. Even if you can find men who can say, yeah, I don't want the option, apparently those men are the ones making all the decisions.
Okay, well, what amount of men have to make that decision for all men?
I've no idea. But yeah, it's always deflected onto, it's because of men's decisions. It's because men don't want the pill because they're biologically scared of something or other. I don't know.
It's like feminism's first line of defense. Blame men, it's all their fault. And if one man wants something and another man doesn't want something, then it's clearly the other man keeping him down. And even if the real reason that it's not, in production is something else, and even if more feminists protested it than maybe other men.
All right. Zach has made an inquiry, has written us a letter. Hello, Honey Badgers. I've only been a fan of the show for a little while now, and I have a question for your mailbag. After getting out of a domestic violent relationship and having abuse thrown at me for taking the abuse from my female partner at the time, I was wondering, is there any advice that you can give me to tell the people in my life about the abuse I suffered and help them understand what I went through? I have been all over the shop for a while now, and I was just wondering if there's any advice you can give for me and other men that went through this in my situation. Love your show, keep up the good work, and hearing people stand up for men so openly is an inspiration. Thank you very much for your time. From Zach. P.S. Sorry for any grammatical errors or spelling errors. Well, thank you for your message, and I got through it, so it was sufficient. But does anyone want to take that one? Anyone at all?
If nobody else does, I can say one thing. You know, when people give you crap for taking the abuse, ask them if they've ever heard of battered woman syndrome and if they think that men are just completely invulnerable robots that aren't subject to the same level of caring and concern for their partners that would make them feel like maybe that they could work things out with a partner. It's just the idea that it's applicable to women and not to men. That a person becoming invested in a partnership might not necessarily make the best choices when that partnership goes sour is just utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of sympathy in our society for men who undergo domestic violence from the hands of women. Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, that's the other thing. What is he supposed to do? Hit her back?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and the situation is that, you know, they're willing to go out, you know, out of their way to mention things like emotional abuse when it's a woman, but it's like they think that emotional abuse can't happen to a man, and to the degree that it happens to a woman. I mean, it is like you said, they seem to believe that men are these sort of unfeeling, stoic robots that no matter what you do, you know, nothing is going to bother them, or that they can take it, and that's just really messed up to me.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate.
It seems like it's actually a little worse than that, where men are stuck between the place of nobody believing them there's domestic abuse because, well, they're the man, they're the strong ones, they're in control, right? But whenever they are faced with the reality that a man has been abused, they instantly default to disgust and looking down on that man for not being strong enough and protecting himself. And exactly what is he supposed to do? Hit her? Like, there's literally no choice left to men, but they're seen as weak if they don't defend, or seen as that they don't have a problem if they act like nothing's wrong. So it's just a fuck situation for men a lot of times.
Yeah.
I just want to point out one more thing, that the ignoring of abused men is actually a modern thing. Abused men were historically understood to happen. I mean, it wasn't treated necessarily well. There used to be a thing called a skimmington back in, I think it was the 15th, 16th, 17th century type time. You had a guy that was henpecked, which, you know, the term henpecked and existing pretty much tells you that this type of abuse was acknowledged in the past. But if a husband was henpecked, he was considered responsible for doing something about it even back then. And if he didn't, then the village would all turn out to ridicule him, and they'd come to his house and drag him out and put him on a horse and dress him, sometimes put him in a dress, and they'd follow him around and hit him with kitchen utensils and stupid things like that. But that was when men were also allowed and expected to discipline their wives, because their wives were not really considered adults. Today, you now have the skimmington, but not the ability to actually enforce the way the village would expect you to enforce. So they've taken away the one tool that they would have given the guy in the past to stop the abuse, and he has not been given any other tools. There, you can't go to a shelter. You might be able to go to a homeless shelter and stay there for a few days, but you can't go to an abuse shelter in most places. And if you leave, she has all kinds of tools to abuse you. So this is a real serious problem in our society, where if a guy is abused, everybody expects him to handle the problem and do something about it and get his abuser under control, but he's not really allowed to do that. And he's not really allowed to escape either.
Yeah, so really bad catch-22. All right, so Adam Sussman has written us. I'm beginning to wonder if the only way to fight back against sexist college sexual assault policies is to have a male college student accuse a female college student of sexual assault because he never said yes. After all, shouldn't it apply both ways? Can she prove he consented? Nobody wants to take a swing at that one.
How do we know it hasn't happened many times?
Yeah.
Just never heard about it.
Yeah, we never hear about it because it doesn't even make the news.
And the guy might be more likely to be prosecuted in something like this because they would see it as completely ridiculous. But when a woman does it, we need to listen and believe. She said that he did it, and therefore we need to give her all the protections and him none of those same protections.
And we're still back at the idea that a man is weak or somehow something wrong with him if he, doesn't just take it. So it's a very complicated issue that I really wish we could decouple this whole idea that only women can be victims and somehow a man loses a part of his manhood if he's been victimized, because that is really at the crux of the issue that stops us from being able to see men as victims without the association of disgust or some sort of like he asked for it or some sort of culpability on his part. That really needs to be addressed, I think, in culture or pop culture, I guess.
Definitely.
And the problem with that, though, I was just going to add in, the problem with it is that every time you bring this up, what feminists go to is the reason why people don't understand men as victims is it's a toxic masculinity. It's that machismo that is making it a tough time for men. So the answer to the problem of men not being taken seriously as victims is men. And there's no, I'm just going to say that.
And of course, feminists are the same people who, for decades, have actually advocated to government agencies, government organizations, and legislative bodies that victims of female perpetrators in particular do not exist. Male victims of female perpetrators. They'll acknowledge male victims of male perpetrators because they can use that, but they don't acknowledge victims of female perpetrators. And so they'll blame men and they'll claim that men are the reason, but the reality is, at least in the United States, they've actually actively gone in and knowingly lied to Congress. And they've given knowingly falsified research to government agencies and legislative bodies in order to get laws changed that heavily impact male victims' ability to receive help.
Hey Badgers, how are you doing? I have a question for your show. So I run into an MRA YouTube channel. So I run an MRA, men's rights activist, YouTube channel, and I often use the term anti-men's rights activist in my videos quite a lot. I use it as an alternative to feminist because there are some feminists who like, support, and are part of the men's rights movement. Also, it seems that a lot of those who hate the idea of men's rights aren't feminists, but rather egalitarians who think that men's rights activists are just feminists but for men. It's kind of a double question. What's your opinion on the so-called egalitarians who hate MRAs, and what's your opinion on the use of the term anti-MRA? Highest regards, Andy or Mr. Mini Bagel. I know you guys want to talk about this. I can feel the energy.
This, like in all kinds of ways in like several videos. It's so easy for this to turn into a label to fight. How do we label ourselves properly? And I almost don't know the right way to have this conversation,
It is really difficult. Go ahead, Hannah. You've been
well, for
taking
one
your
thing,
name seriously.
Yeah, I know. Actually, furiously is a good word. It actually pisses me off when people
look
call themselves.
The cat dragged in. Look
Who is that chick? I don't know that chick.
The cat didn't drag me in. I finally.
Cat isn't even here.
I finally finished, because I've been cooking dinner, but every time I get near the stove and the smells go up my nose, I burst into a fit of sneezing, and it's just, yeah, no, it's lovely. It's wonderful. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
You're allergic to housework.
my face is
That's your new
exploding.
excuse. You can get out of it from now on. You're
You
allergic
know-
to housework.
You know what? I hope so. But you know what the most amazing thing is? I can have a 10-minute long sneezing fit where it's like literally there's only one breath in between sneezes, and it'll just keep going. It'll just go. And then it'll go away for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then it'll just come back. Like I don't know what the hell is the problem, but that's sort of why I've
totally feel you on that.
Yeah. So it's just been really, really lovely for the last few days. So
there will now be a Man Boobs article on this. Hannah feels Karen on air.
Yeah. And he'll be like, but Karen's face exploded, so it's all good. So
obviously,
literally,
to me
obviously
too.
that's a bomb threat, Karen. You got to evacuate the Google Hangout. Thank you so much. Everybody,
great. There's been a bomb threat
out the side.
Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic because I don't know where we are or what's going on, so I'm just gonna listen for a bit and try and catch up.
Okay, all right.
Back to Mini Bagel.
Did Rachel get a chance to go?
No, I did not get a chance to go.
I didn't get a chance.
No, Hannah's first.
Hannah, you go.
Nobody got a chance to go.
Go, Hannah.
Nobody got a chance to go. The thing that really pisses me off about people calling themselves egalitarian and then claiming that feminists and men's rights activists are the same thing is that they are basically doing the false middle ground fallacy there. There's this thing if you see two different viewpoints and you take the position in the middle, a lot of times people just automatically assume that makes you a moderate, that makes you a more rational person than either of the other two sides. Well, there's a middle ground between Group A wants to keep Group B as slaves and make them do all their work, and Group B doesn't want that. There's a middle ground. But that middle ground isn't necessarily right. The answer is everybody has the right to be free. And that's pretty much what men's rights activism is about. Group A wants the right to take Group B and make Group B make up for all of Group A's complaints and all of feminism's complaints. And since feminism really is a gendering of genderless issues, any kind of suffering in the world, they take it and turn it into women are experiencing this and women deserve remedy, and they ignore the fact that men and children also suffer this. Or they'll say women and girls and ignore men and boys, and they'll treat it as if it is only the fault of men. And when most of the time, if you look at any given circumstance, it is a societal issue that both sexes contribute to. And sexual violence is a prime example of that. Domestic violence is a prime example of that. But even gender roles that feminists complain about when it's convenient for them to complain about, and then exploit when it's convenient for them to exploit, those are not things that were dictated by men and women just had to live them. Those were things that all of society sort of agreed upon over a period of time by living them. And so you get this idea that feminists and men's rights activists are the same from these so-called egalitarians, because they are not looking at wanting to degender these genderless issues, the political activism on these issues. They're looking at that as being the same as wanting to gender the issues, which is really an inaccurate picture. And as soon as you start talking, I've had people contact me on Twitter to talk about this, and as soon as you start talking to these people about this, they get mad. They get mad because you are, and they get mad really in the same way that feminists do. You're challenging their worldview. You're challenging their ego, basically. I'm better than everybody else because I'm middle ground, and then as soon as you challenge the fact that being in the middle ground isn't necessarily better, the next thing you get is a bunch of vitriol and a bunch of, well, you're just in denial and you don't realize that you're just as bad as they are and blah, 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 blah. You're just the opposite. And it really drives me nuts. As for feminists supporting the men's rights movement, there's a very, very small few that are actually reasonable and rational. You know, obviously, Christina Hoff Sommers comes to mind. But quite often, I run into feminists who say, oh, yes, I support men's rights. But then when you really get down into discussion with them, they're still gynocentric. And they still are, they support men's rights up to a boundary. And that boundary is when men's rights starts contradicting certain feminist theories, like feminist patriarchy theory or feminist rape culture theory. And then all of a sudden they're not quite as supportive anymore. And or if you stop seeing women as the primary victims of certain areas that for feminism, it is highly valued to call women the primary victims of those areas, then suddenly they're not as supportive anymore. And I've actually had almost knockdown, drag-out fights on Twitter with some gynocentric feminists over things like whether or not it is appropriate to call both gendered types of circumcision mutilation, and whether it is co-opting or not, and things like that, because that need for women to be the primary victims outweighs their actual egalitarian outlook. So I guess that's my take on the two things. I don't think MRAs are the same as feminists. We would like to become unnecessary and obsolete, and I can pretty much say that for most of the MRAs I know, because we've had that discussion. We would love to not be needed. We would love to not have society have the issues that we address. And feminists seem to do things to sort of continue to perpetuate their movement. And we don't want women's sides of various issues to be ignored. We simply want everybody to have the same consideration and society to have the same compassion regardless of your sex or your gender.
Rachel?
Yeah, the situation with egalitarianism and egalitarians being on the fence about this, and the reason why I think they continue to be on the fence about men's rights and things like that is when we start delving into these problems, the thing that comes to mind, the thing that becomes painfully clear, is that we have some serious human problems that we're never going to solve, that we're not going to solve, that feminists aren't going to solve, and most people aren't going to solve because they are problems built into human beings, things that we have a tendency to do as a species because we have evolved for that to be something that was helpful for us when we lived in caves or lived in these small tribal societies, but now that we live the way that we do, they work as a detriment, and it's just something you're not going to ever weed out. And so when they realize that there are some things that can be done, they don't want to acknowledge any of that. And the problem with these so-called feminists that want to, that say they're egalitarian, or that they support men's rights and things like that, I kind of see them as like religious people. For some really, really devout religious folks, you have to take away parts of what you do, of your tradition, to be able to integrate into regular society. Same thing with feminists. They have to sort of give up things like patriarchy theory, a belief in that, to actually be fine with the existence of men's rights activists, or to be fine with men's rights. They have to not believe in any of that stuff, and they also have to be fine with capitalism. So it's kind of a weird situation that we're in, because we have, most of the men's rights activists that I know, they love women. They have no problems with acknowledging that there are some problems that women do face. But it doesn't really seem to be a situation on the side of the feminists who, I'm sorry, my words have failed me. But I guess, am I going somewhere? Just someone take this from me.
Anna.
I got you.
Tag team this.
Not quite sure what exactly Meaty Bagel wanted resolved, but I do kind of sense the question about the non-men's rights activist versus feminist, and I do actually agree with that idea in general of not alienating groups of people that happen to be associated or correlative with other movements. Like, I don't think we should alienate social justice just because social justice warriors are despicable human beings that want everything to be under their control. And we shouldn't, alienate people with colored hair just because so many of the despicable trust fund social justice babies do have colored hair. And we shouldn't alienate feminists because, unfortunately, at this day and age, feminism has become such a large part of the cultural identity, especially in the West and in America, that so many people identify as feminists simply because they believe the dictionary definition, and they have kind of a topical belief in it that kind of like a check box that you mark, and you say, yes, I believe in feminism, but unless they're diehard, dyed-in-the-wool, followers, patriarchy theory and a bunch of other misogyny and all those things are just buzzwords, and they don't really understand the meaning or anything underlying it. And there's so many young people that are identifying as feminists, part of it through sexual, like pro-sex avenues. There happens to be, strangely, some tie-in between that and feminism. Well, I mean, I understand why there is, and that's another separate long topic. But a lot of pro-sex people take on the label of feminism as well in order to not have people think that they're exploiting women, like many organizations that are anti-porn do. And there's a variety of people that don't know really what they're following is just this big social movement that you are a good person if you're a feminist, right? And so many of them don't understand, and we shouldn't be alienating them either because of a moniker or an ideology that they have sort of latched onto without really understanding what it is. As a lot of times when you go on the offensive and you say your group is bad, the only thing the other person can do is just defend, and that their brain just puts walls up and they're not listening to you, they're not understanding a word you're saying, they're not engaging their logic. You've triggered ironically, a very basic mechanism of in-group and out-group. And so a lot of times you just have to put ideas out there and point out the fact that a lot of the MRAs are already doing, in a variety of ways, are proponents of that equality that feminism movement seems to say. And the more of these hardcore rad femmes, the more they violate their own ideology by being hateful and not inclusive and not diverse, and the more people like us, MRAs, and a variety of actual egalitarians, people who are for the rights of both sexes, the more we just say, here's our information out there. Yes, feminism is wrong. I'm not saying we shouldn't deny that, and we shouldn't deny patriarchy theory and all that, but I also think we should open up a space for people to admit that they've been wrong about the feminism that they believe in. Like, if anyone remembers the anecdote that happened on the flight back to me from Calgary Expo after we got banned for basically being MRAs and speaking about challenging the feminist theory. I was on a plane, which I shouldn't have even been on a plane with a journalist because it was many days later and from a different town that I was flying out, but I was somehow seated right next to a anti-Gamergate journalist. And she, after talking with us for about 2 hours of basically the entire flight, she was like, oh, so you're saying that intersectional feminism and moderates men's rights activism have a lot in common and a lot of overlap. Yes, yes they do. There's a tremendous amount of stuff that we agree on and that feminists could actually benefit from us, such as anti-circumcision and anti-male homelessness and pro-male health, like mental health care, things like that. The feminism says that they're into. They haven't done anything about it, but like many armchair feminists, they don't really do anything about even helping women, let alone helping men. But once they see that we, MRAs, have actually been doing the humanitarian social justice type of fixing and helping to people who are in need, they'll be like, oh crap, I was actually wrong about this, and they can start to move away from the ideology that they never really fully believed in the first place. Now, for the ardent rad femmes, well, they're doing our job for us by being as hateful and lying and harassy as they are, but we should continue denouncing them, but we also shouldn't alienate certain groups of people that kind of got swept in with this popular current and don't really know what is happening.
Mike, I'm calling you out.
Alrighty. I've got an analogy. Right. Egalitarians who don't understand how feminism works are like agnostics who don't understand how religion works. I mean, particular flavors of agnostics. I mean, the pompous ones. Agnostics who think they're better than atheists and better than religious people. It's a position very often taken by those who don't understand enough about the subject to have an educated opinion. But instead of just saying, I don't understand enough about this, instead of saying, I am ignorant of this, instead of saying, I don't know, are you seeing the irony? Agnostics will say, you are both wrong, and I know because I'm in the middle and I see all things. Well, guess what? There's more than one middle. Pretty much everything is just another middle. Feminists certainly on the far end of the gynocentric spectrum. There are crazy radical feminists that even most moderate feminists will denounce if pressed. And MRAs certainly aren't the far end of the manosphere. You've got to admit the craziest ideas usually come from MGTOWs and certain PUAs. Men's rights advocates are the equivalent of women's rights advocates. Because men's rights are the equivalent of women's rights. You don't get to pretend they're not. And there is no equivalent of feminism. There is no institutional dogma in any school or any university that clearly and plainly, in theory and in practice, favors men's rights over women's rights. Not even the religious schools. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're not quite as centrist, not quite as egalitarian as you think you are.
That was amazing.
Mic drop!
That was amazing. I love you, Mike. I love you, Mike.
We all fucking love Mike.
I love you too.
You're amazing.
Don't ever change, Mike.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right. What I'm going to say is that was amazing, but we do have to move on. Which is apparently my most annoying trait, is that I move the things along. But I'm okay with that.
It is pretty annoying, Allison.
Yeah, because...
You're so bossy.
Just between you and me, you're very bossy. And I think that the fact that I've said that will probably cripple you for life.
I can't go on.
I know, and that's why we're going to stall the show now, and we're just going to get talking about, I don't know, toast or something.
Yeah,
I don't think you're bossy enough, Alison. I think you need to be more bossy. Now what?
So many contradictions.
I concur with Mike. I need to be bossed around more, I think.
Oh, Allison, I love it when you talk with such authority.
How much comments about femdom we're going to get now?
We need guidance, Allison. We need guidance.
Okay, all right.
You need to put us in
submission. Right now.
Speak with authority, Allison.
Quiet.
Much
Next mail. All right. Sir Percival the Gallant. I mispronounced that, didn't it? The Gallant. Dear Honey Badgers, great to meet you in GG in BC. That's Gamergate in British Columbia. Your show is something that gives me hope as I'm going through a tough time in my life. I have a question primarily for Karen or Anna, although anyone can field it. Karen has suggested that many social justice warriors may suffer from one of the cluster B personality disorders. Considering that many of such disorders originate in repeated emotional abuse and or neglect, especially from primary caregivers, do you think it's possible that actual sexism, racism, or another kind of discrimination may have occurred in the original traumas that they suffered, which in turn skewed their perceptions of the world that they look for, discrimination and harassment against them? I also have a cluster B personality disorder, and I recognize many of the same behaviors in myself as I do in social justice warriors. I want to stand up to feminism on campus, as I'm going back to school this autumn for a second master's degree, but I'm seriously concerned about my behavior when having to confront social justice warriors. Any suggestions, Sir Percival? Well, before I field this to Karen and Anna, because I'm just going to be bossy, I would suggest that do not confront anyone unless you're in a state of calm and serene dignity, because it'll be bad no matter what, but that will make it horrendous. So just if you cannot maintain your cool, don't get in the pool. That was bad. All right, okay, go ahead, Karen or Anna.
There's a bit of a difference between the way men and women are treated, isn't there? So, I mean, Karen might have more experience in the sense of seeing men dealt with this, but from personal experience, women don't get approached the same way that men do. Men get flat out slapped and pushed and hit if you encounter a particularly vile person. So the only advice I would ever give is, yes, absolutely remain calm, remain recording, and state when they're abusing you or they're hurting you or they're pushing you. Say, stop doing that to bring social attention to it, and continue recording and call the cops if they hurt you.
I would have to agree that that's a very, very good thing.
No, don't agree. You guys fight.
If Sir Percival is male, right, there is a different standard when it comes to in real life conflict and confrontation than if you're a woman. You can say quite outrageous things as a woman and still sort of have that immunity from physical retaliation. But when you are a man and you are having like if I was a man, Naomi Wolf would not have called me a rape apologist. She probably would have clawed half my face off, right? She would have been much more enraged. She would have been much more out of control. Now, as far as cluster B personality disorders go, I do think that there is the biggest thing that leads me to believe that this is common in feminist and social justice wars is there's a certain pattern of thinking where you essentially overinterpret someone else's intentions, or you even apply intention where intention doesn't exist, or you act as if something that's unintentional is just as big an injury. So if somebody accidentally tripped you, you have just as much right to be furious at them and maybe physically retaliate as if they did it on purpose, right? And this is, like if you look at patriarchy theory, if you look at rape culture, if you look at all of these things, right, the sort of systemic gendered violence, they apply intention to all of these things. That essentially Brown Miller's thesis was that rape was sort of a concerted campaign by which all men keep all women in the state of fear and subjugation. Same thing with systemic gendered violence, which is not something that women are particularly susceptible to. It's actually kind of a backwards way of looking at violence. Men are by far more likely to be targeted by both men and women when it comes to violence. So there is, even looking at how they talk about online harassment and online abusive comments and trolling and stuff like that, they kind of don't even mention, they have no concern whatsoever for the fact that, men get just as much, if not more, abuse and harassment and threats and shit-talking and trolling online as women do. And then at the same time, they frame the intention of that harassment and abusive comments that women get, they frame it as sort of an intentional campaign to silence half the population, right? So, I mean, it's this over-interpretation of attention, or the over-application of intention, assigning intention, attributing intention where it doesn't exist. That's the major thing that leads me to believe that there's a high percentage of cluster B in there. And I think with the second wave, there probably was an extremely large segment of the feminist women who were cluster B, who were borderline, or maybe even sociopathic, that they had abuse in their histories, that they had all of those negative things. If you look at a lot of the histories of some of the most prominent feminists in the second wave, they were, or even further back, Mary Wollstonecraft used to sleep across the threshold of her mother's bedroom door because her father abused her mother, and she would sleep across the threshold of the door to keep her father from getting into her mother's bedroom. And it's sort of a projection of that damage. My dad behaved this way, therefore society is this way, right? All men are this way. Gloria Steinem, her dad abandoned her at the age of, I think, 9, with an insane mother who couldn't even cope with getting out of bed. So you have a 9-year-old girl who's now playing caregiver to a clinically insane mother who's abusive and crazy and can't cope with life, and dad left the state to go find a job, right? So you have all of this really, really damaging stuff in the history of a lot of second waivers. On the other hand, I think that modern social justice is a little bit different. I think that a lot of the cluster B that's found in modern social justice, these young kids on campus, that's not from abuse. That's from being sheltered. These kids aren't borderline, they're not sociopathic, they're narcissistic. They have narcissistic personality disorders, which is another cluster B, but it has a whole different sort of constellation of causes, and helicopter parenting is one of them. Being protected from anything that is vaguely upsetting all your life is one of them. And this is why you sort of see so many of the second waivers, a lot of the really, really popular ones like Gloria Steinem or like Andrea Dworkin, right? They come from really, really rugged, difficult childhoods and backgrounds, right? They weren't raised in the lap of luxury. But so many of these, sort of the Alex Lifshitzes and and all of these sort of trust fund SJWs, trust fund baby SJWs, I don't think that they've been exposed to any difficulty whatsoever in their lives, or any upset that couldn't be fixed by mommy or daddy or mommy and daddy's money. And so they have developed a completely different personality, this sort of constellation of things, traits in their personalities. And this is why you have, when you had second waivers, they were really sort of right there in your face. They were, marching and burning bras and all of that stuff, right? I don't know that there was any talk of a safe space with coloring books and pictures of frolicking puppies on the walls. I don't think there was, and bubbles and crayons and stuff like that. I don't think that there was anything like that in the second wave. I think that what you see now, that's a product of narcissism, and narcissism is on the rise. It has been for about the last 20 to 30 years, since the self-esteem movement took over schools and took over, the books that parents buy to learn how to raise their kids. And so I think that essentially that's sort of, there's a little bit of a difference. But yeah, there's a lot of projection going on. There's a lot of defensive hostility that goes on, particularly with narcissistic personalities, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender, and those kinds of things. So, yeah. Anyhow, that's like, as far as advice for confronting anybody in your school, wear a GoPro and keep it running.
Anna, get in here. Or not.
I think I already went, so.
Oh, okay. All right. So just before we go, I'll make some suggestions. That these are actually Hannah and Brian's suggestions. First of all, you can be a men's rights activist without confronting feminists. In fact, there's plenty of problems and issues that you can advocate for or help or do something about without talking to feminists at all. So don't think that you have to you don't have to confront feminists or gynocentrists or whoever's blocking the way for men's rights in order to advance men's rights. And there's some good organizations that you can look up, and it's the National Coalition for Free Men. Is it the National Coalition for Men? Sorry, the National Coalition for Free Men is, I believe, is their older name. And also the the Canadian Association for Equality. Now, the Canadian Association for Equality is an egalitarian association. It isn't a men's rights association. I want to make that very clear. But they do work with men's issues. So don't think that being a men's rights activist really is is about confronting feminists. It's about trying to deal with the issues that we identify. Sometimes dealing with the narrative that women have it worse is necessary to even begin to confront some of these issues, because that's what's standing in the way of anybody recognizing that they exist. But let's move on to the next message. Oh, and also FIRE. The
Foundation for Individual Rights and Education.
Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Okay. Tito Wales writes, recently you may have learned of the ANZ Bank in Australia paying women more, citing the oft-debunked gender wage gap as the sole reason. In actuality, they're paying women $500 a year more in superannuation. I'm not sure what this adds up to exactly in a lifetime, but it's quite a bit, especially for a young 21-year-old woman. So coupled with rape hysteria being used on American campuses as a means to economic disempowerment of men, I wonder what your views will be on giving women special economic consideration over men in form of women-only home loans, special rates for super and discount student loans and such. Thanks. Love your show, by the way. Okay.
That all needs to go. That is all. Every single bit of it is a load of fucking shit. An absolute load of shit. And one thing that really drives me crazy is it's really, really, really difficult for a single father who has custody of his kids in Canada to be able to apply for the child tax benefit and the child care benefit. That typically the mother applies for that, and you kind of have to go and slap the court orders in front of the bureaucrats before the tax department will actually give the custodial parent those benefits if the custodial parent is a dad. You know, like this is fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous, and I'm disgusted. Like, isn't it illegal to pay people more just based on some attribute, like, I don't know, religion or sex or color or whatever? Isn't that illegal?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. The affirmative action type laws in the United States were originally created with the idea that even with laws in place that bar the treating people differently in the workplace and treating people differently in school, all those laws were originally put into place with the idea that it was going to be a slow process, removing those attitudes from the public. Unfortunately, they've been kept in place for years and years and years, and now we've gotten to the point where it doesn't matter whether those attitudes are present or not. It's still assumed that those attitudes are present. But the other problem we have is the interest groups that promote those laws have this issue with treating equality as equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity, and it doesn't matter to them what goes into that outcome. So if you have somebody who's like a workaholic and they just absolutely push and struggle and sacrifice to get someplace, they're considered to have usurped another person's potential success, even if that other person doesn't do the same thing. And you end up in this situation where you're punishing people for success that they have earned by forcing them to share it or taking it away from them to give to somebody who hasn't. And it's really unfair. It's just as unfair as basically not acknowledging the capacity for people to have that success under those same circumstances based on gender. And of course those things need to go. But first we have to start recognizing that if we're going to claim that gender and race do not impact people's capabilities, then we also have to accept that gender and race should not be an excuse for people to expect a handout.
Yep, that's a very good point. All right, because we have, I shit you not, 20 pages, and this is a little bit winnowed down as well. 20 pages of emails. I'm going to move on. Zante writes, first of all, please don't disclose my email or my name, which is in the email. You may call me Zante. I've seen more bullshit about women in the workplace and how they're discriminated against, but I've had difficulty producing content due to work. Oh, I assume that means that he's referring to actually creating an article. Articles on how air conditioning is sexist, articles on how periods or children are an excuse for sexist employers, anything, literally anything, is an excuse to say how women are oppressed in the workplace, even that having children is harming their career. Well, duh, but that's your choice. You can't have it all, even if feminists say you can. Let's not forget employers always under the threat of a wage gap accusation, and both employers and male colleagues always under the threat of a sexual harassment accusation. Then you go to an Human Resources magazine and find, well, I'll leave the surprise. Aren't all these demands to cater to women's every whim slowly making women undesirable employees? Aren't women employees being painted as potential troublemakers? In the long run, aren't feminists making women unemployable? I say this suits their agendas. They can then claim discrimination there too, but I can't find my tinfoil fedora, so I won't say it, except that you did. I'm not sure if this warrants a whole episode of Honey Badger Radio, but I definitely appreciate your thoughts on this matter. Keep up the good work, Zante. All right. Anybody want to speak to that? I think it is, honestly.
Yeah, it might make women an undesirable employees, but that is part of the reason why feminist groups have fought so hard to get governments to create incentives for employers to employ women. There's a whole, I guess you could call it a conspiracy theory. I'm not sure that it's necessarily deliberate in the minds of everybody doing it, but there's a whole potential conspiracy that you could attribute to this. You know, this can wreck the economy because we've set ourselves up for an economy that is dependent on both sexes working, particularly for intact families. You can't support an intact family anymore without two jobs, and actually really can't support a broken family anymore without two jobs either, or three or four. So the idea that you know, women are being made undesirable employees is going to sort of be outweighed by things like government incentives to get people off of food stamps by hiring them in the workplace. Employers in the United States actually get tax bonuses and other incentives to hire people who are on food stamps or people who receive welfare checks and things like that, even if they don't actually make them eligible for those programs. As long as they hire them, they'll get a bonus or a benefit. So there's things like that, and of course they'll make women increasingly employable in certain areas, like the human resources departments of various entities, various employers. That's going to be a growing industry. Human resources isn't about making things smooth in the workplace. It's not about protecting employees. It's not about supporting employee rights. It's about protecting the employer from getting sued. That is their job. And nobody who works in an environment that has a human resources department should ever trust their human resources department or the employees in that department to care about their best interests. The whole of that department's existence is to protect the employer from getting sued. And that's just going to get bigger and bigger because of this exact circumstance. But it could honestly be said that this is to get more women and more single families on welfare, to create a bigger welfare department, to create more jobs for government cronies and things like that. I've actually thought about that myself, but the bottom line is not so much what it's for, what the purpose behind it is, what's going on, but what can we do about it? And it's really time for people to start standing up and saying we don't need these things anymore. We need to start acknowledging that if we're considering each other equal, if we're all equal, we need to stop asserting that women cannot succeed without a boost. Either we are equal or we are not equal, and you can't have it both ways. So we need to start advocating that we pick one or the other, and start pressuring our legislators to start dropping the incentives and start settling things, even things out. A real level playing field does not benefit one person over the other with a law that is that promotional. That's not the word that I'm trying to think of, but go on, Rachel, because I've lost the thing I was trying to say.
Well, I think you have to be a special kind of conspiracy theorist to think that women, as a whole, like in every single sphere of working women everywhere, are oppressed on some level. I think you really have to be out there. You have to be a special kind of tinfoily human being to really believe that we're not paying women. We're going out of our way to not pay women as much as we pay men, and that it's just kind of, it's completely ridiculous. We're actually seeing a rise of women getting into higher paying jobs, and we're seeing men being slowly phased out of those jobs and phasing out of the jobs that men have typically had for a good part of history. And we're going to see some problems pretty soon, because one of the things that we find economically is that economic mobility, specifically in the United States, depends on you having men and women in the workforce. And as you see this becoming very one-sided, you're going to see a lot of problems happen. A lot of families fall into poverty as a result of this. And it's, I don't know, how these people can think that women specifically are disadvantaged is just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, certainly. Joel has made an inquiry, or Joe has made an inquiry. I don't know why I'm sending this to strangers. I have to shout this shit out, and I feel that there's no real outlet for it. So I was bullshitting online on Facebook. Some feminist posted some idiot article quoting rapists next to a British lad quotes, trying to point out rape culture, I guess, taking stuff out of context. So I post that it's taking it out of context, end up getting into an argument with a feminist who seems to ignore that a lot can hinge on the context of a situation. So I go into troll mode, posting vile jokes before rebutting a statement, partially to show the importance of context, but also to trigger. Things go quiet for a while, and I get a message from an old employer saying that they've been getting some calls and asked me to remove them from my page. I forgot to set all my privacy settings. I've never actually been the target of feminist dogpiling. This is actually a little frightening, and I know you all have been staring down this for a while now. I'm sorry that it went on so long you might not even read this. This is kind of a letter in a bottle thing for me. I have to get it out. Thanks for Honey Badger Radio. You guys, girls, are the best. Also, tell Karen that watching her eviscerate social justice warriors while drinking and smoking is akin to a religious experience. Okay,
Well,
I don't see anybody's name in the chat. Okay.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for that, because I'm not going to give up drinking and smoking. So I'm glad you appreciate it. But whoever wants to take it away.
Well, this is why even though my privacy settings are very high, my Facebook settings say that I am employed as guest at Insufferable Smartass. Don't put your work on your. If you're going to use social media to have political discussion, like I've got some past employers listed there. One of which, if they're contacted, they'll tell me immediately, and the other of which they just won't care. But don't put your current workplace. Don't list that on your profile that you're using for political discussion. Just don't. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's asking for trouble. All right, dear Honey Badgers, as
Well,
someone
okay,
with
wait. Just because like I've never really felt the need to hide that. Basically, my approach was that I never made my phone number unlisted. I did allow my sister to carry on my phone account with a new number, and I had that unlisted because I didn't want her to get any crank calls or anything like that, or calls, more likely calls from people who appreciate me, and sometimes they call me out of the blue because I'm very easy to find, right? If my name is not common, there are no multiples of me just like floating around, thousands of them out there. So I never actually once I came out under my real name, I never hid anything, and I refused to hide anything. And what I did instead, and this is something that you could consider, is I approached, when my name came out, I approached my boss and I told her exactly what might happen, that she might get, a phone campaign or even picketers out in front of the restaurant, and she was just like, yeah, and that's total bullshit, and we'll deal with it if it happens, and it's not, it's not anything that's going to get you fired. Right. So essentially, that's how I approached it. Like, I can definitely understand people hiding their place of work. Absolutely 100%, especially if you work for a big company or you're not particularly friendly with the person who hires and fires you, right? But that was the way I approached it, and I've never had any problems. So.
I gotta point out, one of the reasons that I don't put my current employer up there is because I don't want them to have to deal with issues from feminists. Of course, the other thing that I gotta point out, especially if there are feminists listening to this, there's a shitload of Hannah Wallens online that are not me, and I would hate to think that any of them are catching shit for stuff that I've said that people find politically objectionable, but it's probably happening because I have set my privacy controls so high, and I've actually run into a few who have actually pointed out to me that people think they're me and have been rotten to them in the past. So it's
Nice.
that's one of the reasons that I don't list, like, and nobody's visible on my social networking stuff except to people that I'm close to. You can't see my friends, you can't see my family unless we're buddies, because I don't want people bugging people who are completely uninvolved with my political activity. And because feminists, particularly feminists, but all social justice warriors to an extent, do have a habit of taking their wrath out on people who are uninvolved and completely innocent of the discussion.
All right, thank you for that, Hannah. Dear Honey Badgers, as someone with Asperger's, I've often been on the wrong side of social justice. Not because I oppose lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans rights, but either because I've failed to show due deference to my feminist quote-unquote superiors, or because I've behaved rather naively, stated how utterly ridiculous some of their claims sound when you don't apply Olympic-level mental gymnastics or whatever apologetics are in vogue this week. The question I wanted to ask is, why does the cult of SOCJust hate people with conditions such as ASD so much? Is it because they're typically male-dominated issues, or because, unlike skin color or genitalia, it's not something that you can peacock freely? I've wondered about this, but it wasn't until I found the Honey Badgers, through Gamergate, that I felt comfortable enough to ask, having met variations of check your privilege, even from my own sister, ever since the Atheism Plus debacle, in which I first encountered what social justice warriorism really is. Thank you for the podcast. I've binged on them at work because I'm on British time, and all the work you do. Discovering Hitchens showed me it was okay not to be religious. The Badgers have shown me it's okay not to be a feminist, and that I'm not a weirdo for doing so. Rodri. I'm going to butcher your name. This was from Rodri. Okay, RHODI. Okay, Brian, go ahead. Do it.
All right. So my what I was wondering is, what is it that the SOCJust, people have against people that have Asperger's? Is that what this guy is claiming?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because generally people who are on the autistic spectrum or have Asperger's, they come across as really insensitive to, and being sensitive is everything that these people are about, right? So, and I think that they take his questions as cruelty, and he doesn't quite understand it because, again, he's just speaking his truth. He doesn't really know. He doesn't walk on eggshells, essentially.
The social niceties come a little bit more difficult to someone with ASD.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's actually kind of touching on one of the other letters, was with the cluster B personality disorders, those are sort of the opposite of autism spectrum disorders, where, you know, in cluster B you have an overinterpretation of intention, and you see you maybe see intention where it doesn't exist. With autism spectrum disorders, it's very, very difficult for those people to be able to actually figure out other people's intentions, right? They don't tend to lie, and even the very comfortable lies that we tell each other every day to keep the social lubricant, you know, in the machine, and they don't tend to be able to detect lies, you know, at least not from social cues. They can detect lies very well from data, but not from social cues. And so I think that there is sort of an insensitivity, there is sort of a bluntness that, and this is what drives me fucking crazy about women who, and they're usually women who are very, very neurotypical, they're very socially savvy, and they go into the tech industry and then they start fucking bitching and moaning about how they're being made to feel uncomfortable by all of these men, right? You're a neurotypical person going into an industry full of differently abled people and essentially saying, your wheelchairs are making me feel all awkward, man. Do something about it.
Yeah,
Like,
the ironic thing about it is that you know, their response to this person's kind
disability.
of differently abled,
Yeah.
you know, way of thinking is a lack of empathy. You know,
Absolutely.
like come at them like, you know, they're the bad guy, and they don't try to understand where that person's coming from, and it often results in, it's ironically ableist. I mean, like, I'm not one to throw that around, but that's something that they would use, you know, a lot of times. But for whatever reason, these people are not deserving of it, and I think it's because, I don't know, like, they demand, you know, sensitivity and respect.
Well, and the social awkwardness sometimes comes off as creepy, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I think that they can, like with this Scott Aronson blog post, it wasn't a blog post, it was a comment, comment 271 or whatever it was, that went viral, where essentially you have this ability for these cluster B people to essentially say, the fact that you're socially awkward and the fact that you said that you were so terrified of offending a woman that you asked your doctor if he could chemically castrate you, that's how much you didn't want to offend women and how terrified you were of offending women as a nerdy guy, right? The fact that you would even burden me with that knowledge is a sense of male entitlement, right? And it's male privilege that you could put that guilt on women, right, when we didn't do anything wrong, right? I mean, like, honestly, that seemed to be the response from feminists, that he had a sense of male entitlement to sort of offload all of this stuff onto women, and oh my God, he made me feel a little bit guilty, so he's a villain. And he's evil, and he's privileged, and he's a horrible patriarchal male, and he's sexist, and all of this other shit, right? So I mean, it's kind of, when it comes to people on the autism spectrum, and then feminists, they're polar opposites, how their brains operate, and it's just like oil and water.
One last thing too, yeah, because that runs I'm assuming that's the opposite of narcissistic, you know, or histrionic people. It's like right on the opposite side. But the last thing I would end with as a thought is, if it was a female that was on the autism spectrum or had Asperger's, would she more likely get empathy by default? Would they ask her if you know, like, would she be approached in a more with more curiosity and less vitriol?
Of course she would. Of course she would, because she's a woman. But at the same time, you know, I'm guessing she probably doesn't get a whole lot of invitations for coffee or girls' night out.
Short point. It's very important that it remain very short. But I have to wonder if the anti-vaccine movement would have taken off if the scare had been, it might give your child cluster B narcissism. But like I said, we really don't have time to get into that.
Oh, that's an
catfish?
interesting question, though. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, that sounds like cancers of the internet there. All right, let's move on to the next email, which I have to bring up. KJ here. I'm still working through your past shows a couple of days, up to July shows now. On your July 10th show, Honey Badger Radio 12, Gamergate in the Badger Cave, you read part of my letter to you all on the show near the beginning, and then had a wonderful conversation related to my issue. I just wanted to thank you all. You can't imagine how much that meant to me. Hugs. KG from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I miscategorized this one. I didn't put it in the thank you. I'm going to have to flagellate myself now. I apologize.
Thank you for your letter. And
Yeah, no, it's always nice to hear that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, thank you for the letter, KJ.
Hugs.
Hugs back. All right,
Thank you.
Miroslav has made an inquiry. Hi, it's kind of old, 9 years, but have you heard about it, seen this? It's very interesting, though there could be more. I think that I'm not the only one who would be interested in what you have to say about it. Oh, goodness, people, if you want us to do a topic, put the topic in the email. Don't just send us a link, because sometimes I forget to look up the link, like right now, and I have no idea what you're talking about, and I sound like an idiot. Oh, Self-Made Man, Nora Vincent. We all know that one. Also, thank you all so much for existing and doing what you're doing. I'm from Europe, Slovakia, and we're basically a banana republic that's about 10 to 15 years behind the rest of the world. Okay, you said that, I didn't. In everything. So the femifascist coup didn't even start here yet, but I feel it closing in. So the issues you talk about aren't directly relevant to our society yet, but it helped me immensely anyway. Basically, you're my red pill, except most of the official red pills are too disgusted, disillusioned to the point of being hostile, so I don't like watching those, but you say many of the same things, just in different ways, which are more digestible and pleasant to listen to. Part of it might be that it's women talking about women, which, yes, gives the hope that not all of them are egotistical fascists, and also men bitching about women is always just less pleasant, even when they're telling the truth. Probably because with them, I have an instinct to emphasize, it's been there, bro, and it just makes my negative feelings and disappointments resurface and reinforces them. When you talk about those things, it's, oh, so she understands. Basically, listening to men talking about this is making me feel more angry and depressed. Listening to you talking about this is making me feel better. Like someone who matters to the society, at least, also thinks these things that unimportant men think. I don't want to make this mail or whatever it is so long. Originally, I just wanted to send you the link to the video, but then I remembered how happy you were about people thanking you in the Topic Is You podcast. So I thought that was the only way I can currently show support. It's really the least I can do. Thank you, and have awesome lives. Smiley face.
I got two brief things. The first one is, I think, as I recall, we did do a show where we discussed Nora Vincent, but it probably would be a good idea to do another show on Nora Vincent. Probably even be a better idea to do another show than it would be to try to discuss her now, because there's just not enough time for that. And the other thing I wanted to say is I feel the same way about women bitching about men as he does about men bitching about women. It's just unpleasant. It's funny when the sexes joke about each other, like when we razz each other, things like men don't go to the doctor, ha ha ha, women are bad drivers, ha ha ha, men can't ask for directions, ha ha ha, you know, women can't find anything without asking for directions, you know, that kind of thing is funny. But when we actually bitch about the sexes, men are bad because this, women are bad because this, you know, it's unpleasant. It doesn't help people relate to each other, and it's sad.
It's just mean.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is if you find it unpleasant when men talk about feminists or talk about feminism, and they're clearly, you know, they usually do it from a place of anger and frustration, but it becomes a lot easier for you to swallow when other women do it, which I understand, because that was how I got involved with all this. Was I was just like, there's a woman complaining about feminism. That's crazy. Like, they would benefit from all this. Why would they complain? And that sort of like got me like watching. But what I would ask is, and this is what I started asking myself, like after a short time, was why is it I wasn't willing to listen to men? Like what? I mean, like I know that there's an instinctual, thing that says, oh, they're just complaining because they're angry dudes or whatever. But the more I thought about it, and it was pretty quick. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that, there was a part of me that didn't care about what men thought. And then when I thought about that, I said, that's wrong. Like, I shouldn't do that. That doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, because if you put a group of people and you ignore their problems and you ignore their cries for help, and you dismiss it as whining, and you find it displeasurable when they voice their opinions, even if it appears that they're attacking people, even if it appears they're being really critical, you're making that worse. I mean, you're just going to make them angrier, and they're going to lash out more. I mean, I think that it's important to ask yourself that question: Why is it so displeasurable when men speak up about their problems, which are valid? Now that you know that they're valid and they're talking about stuff that makes sense, I think that that's worthy, because that's the thing we're trying to do. We're trying to, I think, we're trying to create more empathy for men's voices. We don't, that's like the first step. It's the most important one. That's it.
Well, what I just wanted to add a little bit to that, and maybe it's just a simple matter of personal bias, because I may be the only woman who's like this. I really do not like listening to women whine, which is surprising because I'm such a fucking whiner myself. But it's just grating on the nerves, and it might just be because for example, I can't watch TV because I do not want to watch a woman being raped.
Sometimes we
don't have that gland. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Sometimes we don't like to experience things that remind us of the worst parts of ourselves. So that might be why you don't like it. Maybe you think that that's really bad in you, and you see it in other people, and you're like, God damn it. A lot of times people who don't like each other, they have a lot in common, and that's one of the reasons why.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But so that might be an aspect to it. It's a situation where it's just you don't want to, because men spend so much time repressing those aspects of themselves. Men who actually let that out appear to be ugly and unattractive, or attractive in a platonic sense,
Yeah, men are just supposed to be the armor of society, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so P. John.
I often think like self-hatred is good for you in a weird sort of way, as opposed to self-pity. Now, if we're balancing things in a sort of faux binary way, like
I have self-pity too.
Well, yeah, it's normal. It's part of the human condition to have sort of this self-pity on one shoulder and this self-hatred on the other.
Actually, that's a really good point, Mike. It's basically learned helplessness is a form of self-pity, and when you do that, you're less likely to do anything about your problems. But if you have a little bit of self-hatred, you're more likely to try to change those things about yourself.
Yeah, and if
identifying pity is self-hatred, or self-hatred is pity.
Like feminism denies women like that the benefits of a little bit of balanced, healthy self-hatred. They sort of deflect that self-hatred.
Well, certainly, I know that my excruciating self-analysis is what leads me to try to be a good person, as I understand it, which probably is bullshit.
Yeah, and my constant belief that everything I've ever done is shit is possibly what makes my stuff things that people like, apparently.
And some stuff not shit. I have that too. I have those feels as well, Mike. And I also have the feels of wanting to get to the next email.
It's the best shit, though.
I think we all have those
It's not shit. It's the shit.
Okay, Pete John Irons writes, Hi. Firstly, I want to thank you for the humble honesty with which you try and understand men. Humble? Okay. I've been following you since the blog talk... no, actually, I'm sorry, PG Irons. Thank you for the compliment. I don't mean to be snarky about your ability to observe me, and now I'm just digging my hole deeper. All right. I've been following you since the Blog Talk Radio days, and Allison from when she's only known as Typhon Blue at feministcritics.org, which is a great website, by the way. I want to suggest Nora Vincent and her book, The Self-Made Man, as a topic suggestion for a Honey Badger show proper. Nora is a lesbian who spent a year disguised as a man to try and understand the male experience. What stands out in the book is the open-mindedness and empathy with which she approached the question, which allowed her to reach some genuine insights on what life is really like for men. Now that she's got everything, not that she got everything right by a long shot, but the way in which she did not bludgeon her preconceived notions into the male experience does earn her kudos. In fact, what would really be great is if you could get her on the show in person as a guest, or even something more intimate in the format of the fireside chat you recently had with that male feminist. Regards, P.J. Irons, pseudonym. Nora Vincent is notoriously hard to get a hold of. She's protected behind some sort of speaking engagement representative person. So, but since we've got 2 mentions for Nora Vincent, I'm guessing that we're going to have to do that. We are going to have to do a show on Nora Vincent, and also a show on bronies, which is completely unrelated. But I just wanted to throw that out.
We should use Karen's powers of Karen-ness to get Nora Vincent.
I don't think Karen has enough powers of Karen-ness.
Powers.
I know. Well, okay, we can try. We can try.
Power of Grayskull, okay, to get Nora Vincent.
You need the power of, Grayskull?
Yes.
All right.
But the power of Grayskull.
But do we have the power of Grayskull?
Right now, no. He-Man has it.
I have the power. I have the power of Grayskull.
He-Man gave it to Hannah, and Hannah gave it to She-Ra, and I think it's behind the fridge now. Fuck knows who has the power.
Philip has made an inquiry. You guys need to look at Australia at the moment. Feminists are going nuts down here with all this domestic violence campaign and much other stuff. They now have domestic violence taught in schools in the state of Victoria instead of religion, indoctrinating all boys that they're sinners and girls angels, of course. They've had a glamour girly magnet called Zoo pulled off the shelves of a major supermarket chain because it had an article on how to pick up women causing rape culture or something. It's all very successful, cutting through the forests of power like a well-oiled bulldozer, full steam ahead and no prisoners taken. A man who is almost prime minister has been hassling the thick on the... Okay, this is a little bit difficult to parse. I thank you for your message, but I think I get the gist. Feminism is taking over Australia. Well, it's also taking over Canada, so... Good times.
And the US and the UK. And
also Belgium, apparently. So, you know...
And the United Nations, actually.
We could always do a show where we have, like, a risk board.
Oh, God. Yes, that'd be perfect.
And then we could play Risk, and then just forget about talking about... No, I guess we can't.
Feminist Risk, would that be Frisk?
Frisk. Ha, ha,
and who gets to do the patting down?
Oh, okay. Just for that, we're going to another mail. Curtis writes, Karen, Allison, et al. Ooh, wait. Karen's not here. Karen has schlepped off, so I apologize. I'll get back to that one, since you mentioned Karen. Matt L. writes, I just listened to the latest podcast. I had no idea that the Hugos had gone that badly. I've been to probably 20 Worldcons since the early 1980s on 3 continents, if that island off the east coast of Europe counts. I've done volunteer work at a number of them. I'm a life member of the Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Artists. I've been on a stage for a Hugo and Senior Award. I look great in a tuxedo as the silent assistant carrying the award. I've been friends with several authors and done a fair amount of drinking with a lot more. I know a lot of the Smurfs. I forget what that acronym means. I apologize greatly to the audience.
It's Smurfs.
Smurfs? Yeah.
It's Chorfs.
No, it's not Chorfs. It's Smurfs. It's S-M-O-R-O-F-S.
Okay,
Mad Puppies would know exactly what he's saying. I do not. I also gaffiated several years ago and have been out of touch. Another acronym that I have no clue what it means. G-A-F-I-A-T-E-D. Several years ago and have been out of touch. I've no idea what you're saying, but I assume it means you've left the community. I'm appalled by what happened with the Hugos. Over the weekend, I saw a few tweets about the awards, but I didn't really get an understanding of what had happened. I pushed back on a couple of flaming liberals who were claiming what horrible people the puppies were, and was promptly attacked. It's tough to fight someone who's so self-righteous that honesty, ethics, and morals are irrelevant. After hearing about the voting on the podcast, I have a strong feeling that someone cooked the results. I've seen it before in fandom. I hate to think that the folks I knew would do that, but I've seen what liberalism does to people. I agree that it was to spite Theodore Bale, a.k.a. Vox Day. I read his blog occasionally, and he really is an asshole. He's also right most of the time. I went to school with Steve Gold, the president of SIFWA, that's the Science Fiction Writers Association, during the completely unjustified expulsion of Mr. Beale from SIFWA. I'm ashamed by this. On to brighter things. After listening to Sarah Hoyt, I might have to buy some of her books, even if she's guilty of committing literature when she was younger. I suppose I can put that down as a youthful indiscretion. She's certainly somebody I would enjoy hanging around, at least until the police get called for disturbing the peace. Okay, well, thank you for your letter, Matt L. I apologize for not understanding your acronyms.
SMOF is Secret
Masters of Fandom. Yeah. Thank you.
That I do not know.
I don't know what gaffiated means.
Gaffiated is gaffia is getting away from it all. So gaffiating means to
wow. There's so many acronyms I don't know.
The journalist saves our asses.
Such acronyms.
Ooh, who knew that journalism could be so effective?
No.
So sharp. So useful.
So
non-gross.
Research is a thing.
Research is a thing.
Gamergate knows.
The power of research compels you.
The power of research compels you. All right.
You need an old priest and a young priest. Or an old journalist and a young journalist.
And we also need silence. The Pale writes.
You shall not have a press pass.
I know what you're getting at.
You're awesome.
The Pale writes, Dear Honey Badger Brigade, about the mass shooting subtopic, aren't most mass shootings produced by isolation of individuals? Most mass shootings, especially school shootings I've heard from, were made from isolated people who hadn't anybody to talk to or didn't trust anybody enough. I'm from Switzerland and mostly know about the German mass school shootings. The most important factors I saw were these. Mostly they dropped out of school and later went to do the shooting. They were loners or isolated from their peers or hadn't any, or at least felt that way. I can only assume that point one could have destroyed a big part of their identity because they hadn't any peers to identify with or any socially acceptable identity. Also, point two is a big impact because they don't have the possibility to talk about their feelings, in which case they can become a pressure cooker. I don't want to apologize for the actions they did, but I can emphasize with them because I was at some point in my short life likely to become like them. P.S. I apologize for my English writing skills. The Pale. I assume he's from Germany. Oh, well, I got through it, so it was good. It was sufficient. Go ahead.
Right, that's one of many sort of valid descriptions. It's an oversimplification, really. Mass shootings all over the world, if you look at specific incidents, you'll find that there were different circumstances involved in many of them, vastly different in some of them. But mass shootings do all seem to have in common that there has been some level of dysfunctional response to adverse circumstances in the life of the shooter by the shooter's support network and overall social environment, the people in their social environment. And it's not been the same dysfunctional responses every time. It's been different things. In the U.S., you find that a lot of mass shooters are on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and so there are people who specifically say, well, SSRIs cause mass shooting. Well, that might not be the case. It might be that these are individuals whose social, or not social, but anxiety issues or depression or other mental health issues are only being partly addressed by their support network, where they're throwing medicine at them and then not giving them the behavioral therapies they need. There's other instances where people have been socially ostracized and even socially abused by their peer group and have come back and shot at their peer group. There's been instances where people have committed mass shootings after being what they have felt was wrongfully targeted in a work situation. So there's been different things, and in quite a number of cases, mental health issues have been involved. There was discussion after the one in Washington State that Anita Sarkeesian tried to attribute to toxic masculinity. There was discussion of racism against the shooter in that particular instance at his school, that he was facing that every day. And it's racism that people don't talk about as much. And he was part Native American. And you hear all kinds of discussion about other ethnic minorities and what they face every day, just being a part of society, and it's not treated the same. Like Native Americans, people will get all up in arms about sports teams' names out for their benefit. They don't really talk about the way maybe people treat their kids at school when they're integrated into a public school system and they're off the reservation, literally. So there's a lot of complex factors that go into these circumstances, and it can't really. It's one of the reasons why I get so pissed off about feminists trying to attribute it to toxic masculinity. Another one being that there's actually been a number of female mass shooters, and not just in schools, and also in the workplace and other environments. Although usually when women kill, they use other means. There have been women that have done so with guns and bombs, actually. So it's really just like I said, an oversimplification. There's a lot of various reasons, but that is it is a valid statement in that is one of the many complex contributing factors to mass shootings.
There was a female mass murderer that killed like 3 men with a knife or something. Joanna Dennehy. She was, I believe, in. So yeah.
Yeah.
Even
well, actually, there was one who killed babies in a hospital. Actually, there's been a few. One that specifically targeted the babies of women that she thought weren't going to be financially capable of raising their children. And that was with injections with drugs that killed them. So yeah, there's women. A lot of times, women will kill with other means that they think are going to be less detectable, or means that maybe they feel are more personal, and in some cases means that like women will use proxy violence to kill. They'll hire hitmen, or they'll damsel to get men to do their fighting for them, so that they don't have to take the responsibility for it.
All right, let's move on to the next item. And it's not that I don't agree or think that the people are saying wonderful points. I just need to move this along because that's what I do. I'm the heavy. Flack has made an inquiry. Hi, I just wanted to throw a news item in your direction to see if the honey badgers would take it up and give their opinion on it. It's been reported in a couple different locations, but I found an article that detailed some text messages between the two parties, and I thought I'd share that one. The badgers may have already heard of this, but I wanted to give it just in case. That apparently a teen girl named Michael Carter's texted her friend, who's her suicidal friend, Conrad Roy, and encouraged him to commit suicide. And I believe that she has been charged with manslaughter in this. So that is the story, and it is actually pretty appalling.
Well, if there's a crowd gathered around a person who's on a high floor of a building and they start yelling jump and the person jumps, there have been instances where people have been arrested and charged for being part of that crowd yelling jump. If she texted him when he was suicidal and encouraged him to commit suicide and he did, that's horrible. It's absolutely unconscionable, and it's not unreasonable to charge her for that.
Well,
at all.
I actually read some of these texts. Okay. Okay. So this is Carter. So I guess you aren't going to do it then. All that for nothing. I'm just confused. Like you were so ready and determined. Rory, I'm going to eventually. I really don't know what I'm waiting for, but I have everything lined up. Carter, no you're not, Conrad. Last night was it. You kept pushing it off and say you'll do it, but you never do. It's always going to be that way if you don't take action. You're just making it harder on yourself by pushing it off. You have to do it. Do you want to do it now?
See, to me, and it's one thing it's kind of going to be a fine line here, because, like, if I'm not suicidal, if I became suicidal because somebody texted me and said you should kill yourself, that would be on me. But if I had somebody I was close to, like emotionally intimate with on some level, a person I trusted and cared about, whose opinion mattered to me, and I was suicidal, and they knew I was suicidal, and it could be proved, like with texts like that they knew I was suicidal, and then they gave that emotional push, that deserves a charge. So I've had people tell me, to go die in a fire, go kill yourself, shit like that. If something happened to me, I wouldn't want somebody prosecuted for that. But this is a situation where it's a deliberate act. There's no excuse, really.
I mean, should I read some of this? This is really. Carter, you're so hesitant because you keep overthinking it and keep pushing it off. You just need to do it, Conrad. The more you push it off, the more it'll eat at you. You're ready and prepared. You will be free and happy. No more pushing it off. No more waiting.
What the hell is wrong with her?
You're right, Carter. If you want it as bad as you say, you'll do it today. Roy, yep, no more waiting. Carter, okay, I'm serious. You can't even wait till tonight. You have to do it when you get back from your walk. Roy, thank you. Carter, for what? Roy, still being here. Carter, I would never leave you. You're the love of my life, my boyfriend. You are my heart. I'd never leave you. Roy, Carter, I love you. Roy, I love you too. Carter, when will you be back from your walk? Roy, in 5 minutes? Carter, okay, you gonna do it? This is a sociopath.
What the hell? That is just absolutely sick.
Yeah, I find it sort of. I don't know if I should have read it. That's so disturbing.
That's disgusting. That is, when you manipulate someone's mental state like that, especially in a relationship, whereas this was somebody that he loved and trusted and cared about, and what she said to him mattered. Like somebody in chat is, what a bitch. She's not just a bitch. This is murder. This was deliberate. God, I hope that she gets the book thrown at her. That's disgusting.
Well, I'm pretty sure she did. I'm pretty sure. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. No, she's facing manslaughter charges.
She's lucky that's all she's facing. Because
this seems like incitement.
She basically did the equivalent of turning his hand with the gun in it and pushing his finger to pull the trigger. That's just sick.
This is the teenage girl who texted her friend to get back in the vehicle, get back in the truck.
No, she was texting him to kill himself.
Yeah, to get back in the truck.
About it. Yeah, they were talking about that in the chat. Somebody in the chat said that after he started, that he did it with monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, he started the truck, he sat in it, he got scared, he got out of the truck and texted her, and then she told him to get back in the truck.
That's...
Yeah, no, and then here's the really sociopathic thing about it. She then started up a fund to help victims of suicide and organized a charity softball event for victims of suicide and all kinds of other stuff. And she sort of turned his death into this platform for a social justice superstar kind of, she just figured she could get all this attention and all of this sort of admiration from the public for standing up because as somebody who's bereaved and grieving and such a close friend of his, and it just affected me so deeply, I had to start up this charity and I had to raise money for suicide prevention and organize this softball game and all of this other crap, right?
Okay, this might be worse than murder. When Hannah said this is murder, I was thinking, oh, that's a bit far. But at this point, no, this is the one thing that's worse than murder. You've killed him and pretty much stolen everything that was good about it. Wowzers.
It's torture and then murder followed by exploitation.
Fuck man.
The entire case is just completely fucked up. And her parents are, of course, sort of apologizing on her behalf. She's not actually like that. And she was a straight A student, blah blah blah. Well, you know what? A lot of sociopaths are straight A students.
How old is this girl?
Like 17, something like that, 18?
Okay, no, she doesn't get a fucking pass here. Okay, you're 17, you know it's not okay to fucking tell people, go ahead and kill yourself. That's fucked up. That's...
So according to Earl Bedford in chat, she is actually saying that he brainwashed her and that's why she did it. And I kind of have to wonder where she gets off with that. Does she have evidence? Does she have texts like the text that are coming out about what she said, where he pressured her just as heavily to talk him into it?
Well,
And if so, why, when he was doing that, did she not, since she loved this guy, go to somebody for help? Because if I had somebody pressuring me, I'm gonna commit suicide. Don't let me chicken out. Talk me into it. I don't want to chicken out of it. I need to die. If somebody was saying shit like that to me, the first thing I would do was seek advice from a mental health professional on how to get him help.
Yeah.
Even if it was somebody
Well,
I
guys,
didn't like.
And if he was in the truck, I would send the police.
guys, well, obviously he controlled him because he had the magic women-controlling antenna in his pants that emits only women-controlling radio waves. That just, oh God, this does it not stop? Like, does this ever? Well, okay, it's the defense. You know that they're going to scrape the bottom of the barrel to keep this sociopath from spending time in jail.
Of course they will, and it's their job. And I don't have any hard feelings for the defense attorneys. That's their job. They're supposed to do that, and they're supposed to do that for any defendant, whether they're guilty or not, whether the defense attorney knows that they're guilty or not. They're supposed to do everything in their power. That's what an adversarial justice system is, right? But the fact that she's only facing manslaughter charges, that's because there is a definite case for reckless indifference, homicide, second degree.
You know, speaking as a person who's actually had to stick a finger down a friend's throat to stop a suicide with sleeping pills, I can't even begin to. That's as disgusting as this is. I can't understand the thought process behind an individual knowing that their friend is going through this, knowing that their boyfriend, much less, is going through this, and not reaching out every which way they possibly can to get somebody to help put a stop to it. And the idea that this is a defense offered in court just blows my mind. I mean, not that they would try everything, and just that they would think people would buy it. If somebody buys that defense, that like, not that I have a great deal of faith in the court system to begin with, but it'll take it below zero.
Agreed.
This is
The chat's saying she has a fundraiser too.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm sure she
Are
does.
people supporting this woman?
That's what the chat's saying. I don't know. I'm asking for.
Ask the chat what the number is at thus far. How much money?
There are no fucking words
I
for
guess like
this.
the show completely goes to a halt with this one.
Yeah, I want to know how much
I
money
work
she's
for it.
raised.
Just none of them are very nice.
Okay, well,
what else can be said?
okay, well, I
Oh
can
my
say something
God.
completely almost irrelevant, but this I don't know. I think you might all hate me for saying this, but this woman looks like Cameron from *Halt and Catch Fire*. That's the exact
Oh my
expression she
God!
had.
Stop!
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. I wanted to say that. It's just
Are you sure she doesn't just remind you of her? Or?
no, that is the same fucking expression. I am now convinced that this is the expression of a sociopath. They must have done their research. That sort of, well, a sociopathic woman that's like sort of bemused. Oh, I'm really a Bambi. But if you look at the other picture of her, she's rolling her eyes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, it's like they do because they're operating sort of they have a little bit they have cognitive empathy, They don't have compassion, which is effective empathy, but they have cognitive empathy, so they can understand what other people are thinking, and that's how they know what to do and what to say to manipulate people, right? Even though they don't have any compassion for them, even though they don't care about them or they don't have that sort of mirroring of emotion, right? When you see somebody cry and you start to cry, or you see somebody you ever see somebody with a hematoma on their eyeball, right? And I can't even look at them. I'm just like, my eyes are just watering reflexively, right? They don't have that, but they can sort of infer what that feels like. They can infer what people's motivations and intentions and feelings and all of those things are. And essentially, if they did not have that cognitive empathy, then there would be no point in being sadistic, right? I mean, you would have maybe a Joseph Mengele who would look at human beings like lab rats and just be able to have like zero compassion, zero feeling for them whatsoever, but he's trying to figure something out, and so he's going to like do whatever to them. But to actually, people who torture others for pleasure, sociopaths who torture others for pleasure, they have to actually have a sense of what that person is feeling, right? Which is, it kind of makes it even more gross, right? It's sort of a flip of autism spectrum disorders as well, because autism spectrum disorders, people with that, they have problems with the cognitive empathy, but they often have like huge compassion, right? And they have a huge desire to understand people and relate to people and want, and feel like they want people to be doing well, people around them to, like they have compassion for people. They just don't necessarily understand what makes people tick. Other people tick, and with sociopaths, they understand what makes people tick. They just they either don't care, in which case they do very, very well in professions like business and surgery and things like that, and politics, or they care but in the opposite direction. They want to hurt them.
Okay.
It says the fundraiser is at $2,300. Earl quoted from the news story. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to support Homers for Conrad. I'm so happy to say that with your help, we've raised over $2,300. Carter posted on September 13, 2015. So people, she does
in the future.
She has. Yeah, that's pretty strange.
No, that was
Probably
the fun. That was her raising funds for this, over the suicide. That was her raising funds.
I know, but
it does. It says 2015.
Yeah,
it's got to be a typo.
It's a typo. It's 2014.
As heinous as this is, we do have to, tighten it up and move on.
Yeah, there's a really serious point to make about this.
Yes, let Canna finish.
All right, so this woman has supporters. This is kind of sick. This woman has supporters. This woman has a fundraiser. This woman has people trying to raise money on her behalf.
Well, she has the quintessential defense.
But here's the thing.
The blonde girl.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. She has supporters. She has people coming out in her defense, and social justice warriors. This is a news story. This has been made public and everything. Social justice warriors have not come out in mass in a campaign against the people supporting her the way they did when, say, the Steubenville boys, one newscaster made one statement that acknowledged that they were human. That acknowledged that they were human. So here you have such a level of hypocrisy. Here is a sociopath or a psychopath, I don't know which, who actually took a person who was vulnerable, in a mentally vulnerable state, where maybe he wasn't unconscious, but he was in a mentally vulnerable state, and pushed and pushed and pushed until he killed himself. And this actually could be more comparable to the objection to the hysteria in Canada over Rouge, who their objection to Rouge is basically his objection to the feminist claim that asking repeatedly is rape. So that's basically pushing, right? They get all up in arms over what he said, But here, this person who has pushed an individual into suicide, an individual who is arguably emotionally vulnerable and arguably not in control of himself because of his mental state, and they said nothing.
And her
They've said
relationship
nothing.
with him. And her relationship with him.
Yeah, and her relationship with him. This, you know, I'm not going to call this mind rape, but this is a very comparable situation to what they would be, you know, objecting to if it had to do with sex and if it was a guy, you know, and yeah, I got people in chat ragging on me for talking about Roosh. I don't care personally about his politics, and I don't care whether he's, you know, what you think of him, and I'm not going to specifically come out for or against the guy personally, but his right to talk, I'll stand for that forever. But the thing is, it's a comparable situation, a comparable behavior, and when it's a man doing it to women with regard to sex, they're horrified and outraged and ready to lynch the guy. But here a woman has done it to a man and killed him with it, and not a word. Radio silence. Where are they?
All right, we have to definitely move on, and it's really egregious, and I know I threw like a bomb into the chat, so I apologize for that. But okay, a fan writes, if this is read on air, please do not read my name, as I actually work at a sister station to WDBJ, and I have an irrational fear that someone might make this connection and get me fired. I would really like to hear your feelings on the WDBJ shooting, and particularly this article that was pointed to my direction. Third shift, summer of the gun violence against women and why we allow it. Personally, the most telling quote occurs in the first paragraph. There seems to be a feeling of entitlement out there that is mixed with false victimization, which makes these people feel justified. If you don't toe their line, they will just snuff you. It seems like what feminism and social justice warriors have tried to do to you guys for some time. Anyway, I love you all and your show, and would love to talk with you guys sometime, though I'm always scared to approach because you're all internet famous. Sincerely, a fan. Okay, so I believe that he's talking about the recent shooting on air of an anchor woman and a cameraman. Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, take it away, Rachel.
Okay, so I actually looked at this article, and it's a really fucking difficult read, because it starts out, okay, talking about this is a tragedy, and this is really, really terrible, and then it goes right into, this is evidence of violence against women. And then it goes into mentioning, like, harassment, the Gamergate harassment campaign, and, you know, that's what they said. It was basically a harassment campaign. Mentioning Donald Trump and talking about all of the things that women face specifically, and then it's towards the end, it basically tells men that you aren't victims. You do not suffer in the first world. And women, the reason why you are suffering and you are being victimized is because men fear you, and they fear all the wonderful things about you, and keep doing what you're doing. And then he ends it with a fucking Alice Walker quote. I shit you not. It is a cluster fuck of an article. But make no mistake, this is a tragedy, and it's really, really terrible. And the thing about this is that somebody would go out of their way to write an article like this when you also have a dead cameraman, a man who had a family and people that cared about him, and he doesn't matter. So the fact that he was shot, that's just not important. Because a woman was shot.
It's incidental, you know, like, honestly. You know,
but the thing that really gets me about this is that this right here, this shooting, breaks a lot of the stereotypes that people are trying to push about what drives these people to commit these crimes. That they usually pull you could guarantee that if he was white, they'd be pulling the angry white man stereotype, and he just set them off, and they would not be talking about the mental health issues They would not.
Didn't he make a statement or leave a note or something that this was retaliation for the shooting of the black people in the church?
Yes, absolutely.
So this is actually part of a race war. And this, like, I see constant race baiting
Yes.
in the U.S. Here in Canada, you go on a freaking news program, they talk about microaggressions, and like I get really upset when, it makes me feel upset when you ask me where I'm really from, right? Okay, whatever, right? We don't have the kind of hostility that seems to be sort of happening in the U.S. over the last maybe 2 years, right, between whites and blacks. And the fact that nobody, that there's a feminist who's going to turn this into a misogynistic thing,
Yes.
when the guy himself said it was all about race.
Yeah, absolutely. He said it was all about race, and that he wanted to start the race war that Dylan Roof was trying to start, and that it was on. Basically, it was a powder keg since this happened. Like the moment right after he found out about the Dylan Roof thing, he put a down payment on a gun, and so he decided that he was going. For those of you who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about,
he already had a grudge, right? Because he was fired from the station. He filed a lawsuit or a complaint with the EEOC based on racial discrimination.
And he'd done that before that also.
Yeah.
He'd done this in more than one place, and he was constantly pulling the race card.
Yeah, he had bought into the social justice narrative that anything that happens to him, any failure in his life is because people hate blacks. And so instead of taking a path to sort of self-improvement or sort of self-examination, and maybe because from what his coworkers said, his former coworkers said, he was just a really difficult guy to get along with, right? Just a really he was like the Ellen Powell of like black teen journalists, right? Just a chip on his shoulder, very, very difficult, right? And so instead of actually looking at his own behavior, his own thoughts, right, and sort of maybe doing some sort of behavioral therapy where when you're getting upset or you're feeling like and this is the only therapy that works on cluster B disorders, is when you actually see yourself or catch yourself imputing intention where it doesn't exist. When you catch yourself in those feelings, you take a step back and you calm down and you talk it through with yourself, and you essentially talk yourself out of it. Is this logical, blah blah blah, right? Is this person really attacking me? Or are they just defending themselves from my bitchy behavior, right? So essentially, he was just a very, very difficult person and he had mental health issues, obviously, if he was seeing racism everywhere. And yeah, I would think that social justice warriors should be like hailing him as a hero, the way feminists did with Valerie Solanas after she shot Andy Warhol.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna interject. No more. We have to move on. Because we are gonna probably talk about this on another show.
We can't make it clear that this was a gay black man that completely destroys the stereotype. That was all I was gonna add.
Yeah, no, it was indeed a gay black man who shot a camera woman and another man, and another person. I mean, 2 people died and 3 people were shot. There's so much to get through. At this point in time, I don't even know if a 3-hour show is going to be enough to get through everything and get to the 3 people who are waiting to talk to us.
It won't be. So just close your eyes and point at an email, and
let's go back to the 2 Karen ones that we skipped over because Karen wasn't here.
I was having a sneezing fit. I'm sorry.
I found it very interesting, Alison. You haven't chosen the emails that we want to hear.
All right, didn't we blow up this dog, this Doge?
Is this your best mic impression?
This is Kevin, Karen. This is Kevin.
Oh, okay. It sounded vaguely British.
Very interesting.
Yes, because he is British. You shouldn't.
Oh yeah. Kevin.
Kevin Logan. You thought he meant Kevin Strong, porn star extraordinaire.
All right, let's get to one of them.
And power.
The one that I originally did. Okay, this is from Pressure Kosher. Hey Badgers, I saw your live stream after the Society of Professional Journalists airplay, and I wanted to pay Karen a compliment. Karen, you have nice legs in those jeans shorts you were wearing. I'm not going to lie, those legs of you got me aroused. Hashtag catcalling. Have a great show.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice because I'm old. It's
Yeah.
nice to hear it. So.
Hi. I have something to say for examples of crying in men. I stand on the other side of that. I can't cry since I've over 30 years, and that's hell. I did tie a knot emotionally on myself, and so I cannot accept Karen's talk about not crying on Sargon of Akkad's show. From my point of view and experience, it's not healthy to only toughen up. As I have understood, men cried for long times when they did cry in the past. I want to have the whole spectrum of feelings. Every feeling is of interest to me. Likewise, every thought, too. It's very insightful of Sargon of Akkad to say that the problem is that women don't approve of that. It's insane. I think men and women were much stronger in ancient times to just cry for something. I don't buy that when Hector's wife in the movie Troy cries in that way over him when he's about to die. Life in people was much tougher in those days. I have a beard not to hide emotions, but to show... make a show like makeup and long feminine hair. Kind regards, the Swede. It's always a bit of a haiku reading the Swede's emails.
Well,
so
okay, I want to clarify because I wasn't necessarily talking about boys and men not crying, but that there seems to be a instinct on the part of boys as far as when it's appropriate, when and where you can do that. And so it's essentially like, because my boys always cried. Well, they didn't always cry, but they cried, right? My oldest, and like I said, I never ever berated them or judged them or anything for crying. And I remember one time my oldest, he was sitting on my lap, he was about 2.5, and we were watching Beauty and the Beast, and it was just at the point where, the Belle says, I love you, and the Beast turns into the prince, and he starts crying, and he immediately tried to climb off my lap and go into his room, and I never sent him to his room ever. He was not a kid that tolerated timeouts. They were just horrible for him, so we never used timeouts. We tried it twice and then never did it. But he wanted to go somewhere private and cry, and I stopped him and I said, "It's okay. I'm crying too, right?" And he looked up at me and he saw that I was crying, because it's like I'm a crier when it comes to movies. It's just who I am, right? And then he was okay with it. And with my younger son, anytime he hurts himself, he waits until he's somewhere safe before he cries, right? And it just seems to be something that if you don't make any kind of judgment either way, a lot of boys will just have this thing where if they're out in public and they're around strangers and they hurt themselves, they won't cry. They'll limp all the way home and crash open the door, and then they'll start crying, right? Because that's a safe place for them to do that. And they seem to have this instinct as to where it's safe for them to do that and where it's not. And so this is really what I was getting at. Not that there should be anything wrong with boys crying or whatever, but I don't think that that instinct that a lot of boys have should be overlooked. It's there for a reason.
Well, on the other hand, I would say that girls don't actually cry. What they're doing is they're making in many cases they're making a show of manipulating other people. Not always, but
not always, but often, yes.
But often,
Absolutely.
And it would be nice to find an equal ground here between having to hide your tears and being able to use them as a way to manipulate other people.
Yeah, well, I don't think boys can really do that. It's very.
Well, maybe in the future when we have a little, if it's possible, we start questioning the use of tears as a manipulation tactic. There may be some room for boys to actually cry genuinely in public. But I hate to leave it at having the last say, but...
No, go ahead. It's all good. I've said what I wanted to. I just clarified what I was getting at in that comment.
Typical of a right-wing conservative.
Whatever, Kevin. Just shut the fuck up.
Okay. Hello, honey badgers.
I gotta talk to that guy tomorrow, don't I?
Yes, and be nice. Be nice, people. Hello, Honey Badgers. First off, thank you for all that you do, especially you, Karen. I've been following your videos for almost a year now, and I have to say you're fantastic in your analysis and criticism of feminism. I wasn't sure if I should send this to Gerwitz, What, or the Honey Badgers, but since you are doing this open talk tonight, I figured now would be a good time to bring this up. I apologize in advance for the length of this email. I'm a student at a well-known public university at the U.S. One day my mother brought up this story to me saying how ridiculous it was. Excuse me. College students must agree to sex to avoid sexual assault charges. Last year I posted this on Facebook one day and was not expected to be attacked by a at the time close friend who identified as a feminist. Needless to say, we had a heated argument that resulted in the end of our friendship. A couple days after, she sent me a text message saying, "Insert my name. I no longer feel safe being alone with you, so I will not be able to drive you to class anymore." That night, I had what I could only describe as a panic attack. I was worried that I might have charges against me. I barely slept. I could not stomach anything the next day and ended up bawling my eyes out to a female professor of mine that afternoon. Since then, I have found sanctuary in your videos, Karen. I have become more involved in men's issues now, which helped me mature significantly, and I realize my role as a male in today's society. I would like to know what you all think of the article, as well as any advice you would have for a college male like me on how to deal with these kinds of young women. Thank you so much. Sincerely, Concerned Buckeye.
Oh, how to deal with young women in college? Don't.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's really sad that, like, essentially, like, the ratio of feminist to non-feminist, or like crazy to non-crazy, is going to be higher in college than just in the general population. So I would suggest that if you want to date, or you want to just sort of maybe hook up with a woman once in a while or whatever, even just interact with women just sort of in a casual, flirtatious, back and forth, friendly basis, right, where there's an attraction and you just enjoy the interaction of just conversation or whatever. Go off campus, go to a bar, right, and talk to the bartender. Right? Female bartenders tend to be very, 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 very calm and reasonable and rational, because they have to be, because they're dealing with drunk people a lot, right? So when there's a nice, well-spoken, reasonable, charming man who's going to sit at the bar and just sort of make casual conversation with them, they like that, because it's that's the pleasant surprise amongst all the people who are drunk and stuff, right? So yeah, maybe do that. Like, just go off campus, because the ratio of crazies to normal women is a little bit better off campus.
Okay, so I have a message that references Kevin and myself. Should I read it or just move on?
No, go ahead and read it.
Okay. Oh, shush, Doge. Baron Rashpal has made an inquiry. Regarding your recent podcast, I love the passion that Allison showed. That he's referring to the Friday fireside chats that we've been having with Kevin, Logan, and Karen will be having this Friday. Yay, Karen!
Oh God, no! Is there any way I can back out of that?
No, there's no way.
I have a funeral to go to.
No.
Not really, but I...
No. It's your funeral that you're going to tomorrow on the show. Yeah.
Fuck.
I love the passion that Allison showed. She nearly went over the edge but did not. Compared to her, Kevin came across as a person with much less passion. However, I'm aware Allison will be the first to tell me passion is not what counts, but reasoned arguments. Agreed. So she made a ton of arguments poking holes in the narrative, but Kevin was at the end left with assholery, to which Allison responded by saying, in each movement asshole behavior abounds because we are humans, and so will you please deal with my arguments. One argument that was missing was the one good man argument. Maybe Rachel can whip that one out next time when she goes to head with Kevin. I think he means Karen. You meant Karen. You gave Karen an out there, and she can't take it.
It's Rachel. No. Rachel's gonna do it. Rachel's gonna.
No.
Our minds are becoming one.
You're totally gonna. You're totally gonna go one-on-one with Kevin tomorrow, and I'm gonna spend.
Okay, I'm inside of all of you.
Oh God. You've also made
Rachel, always with the disgusting.
There's a little bit of Rachel in all of us.
She also made a great argument when it came to rape culture posters on campus by comparing that tactic to posters about minorities like Jews, etc. Okay, thank you for your message, Baron Rashpal. I feel very awkward reading about myself in the third person, which is why I asked if I should do that. But since they said yes, I did.
It worked.
It worked? Okay.
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't too ridiculous.
Well, you didn't mispronounce your name, so.
Tyson? Yeah.
Typical right-wing conservative rhetoric.
Stop it, Brian.
Oh dear.
Emily instead. This is just.
I'm preparing you. I'm preparing you because you're on the right. You're all on the right.
Well,
Yeah.
honestly, the older
That's why she says right so often.
Far enough left everybody on the other end is
the older I get, and the more I have to put up with this shit, and the more I've dug into everything, and the more, like, yeah, I'm starting, like, all of this bullshit is pushing me further and further to the right, right? It just is, right? Because there just seems to be a little less, even among the religious right, there seems to be a little more honesty. They're like, I believe in God, I can't prove he exists, but I believe in him, you gotta have faith, right? Not, I have these fake scientific peer-reviewed studies that were all reviewed by radical feminists that prove rape culture exists, right? Like, religious people aren't they're not, well, not very many of them are trying to turn it into a science, right? Or treat it like a science. They treat it like a religion, right? Whereas all of this sock-just stuff and all of this feminist stuff, they want to treat it like a science when it's absolutely not. It's just an ideology. It's a faith-based ideology, and there's very, very little evidence to demonstrate that it's a coherent way of looking at the world.
All right, Curtis writes, Karen, Allison, et al. You guys are et al.
Et al. That's right.
What happens if Adam and Steve order a wedding cake to be made, but they're from South Carolina, so they want a Confederate battle flag? The Southern Cross, like the Dukes of Hazzard, not the Stars and Bars. Pretty sure people are ignorant enough not to tell them apart from the Betsy Ross revolutionary flag. Can they be refused, considering that they are a gay couple? What can others be refused cakes with? Why can others be refused cakes with the Confederate battle flag? What about the Mississippi state flag? What if a woman is bigoted against men of other races? Can she refuse to date or have sex with them, considering her reasons are bigoted? How far does consent and use of one's own body goes? It must be somewhere between have sex against your will for social justice warrior reasons and make a gay wedding cake against your will in your own business for social justice warrior reasons. But I can't map out where the middle ground is. What if Adam and Steve simply identify as non-bigoted? Does that solve everything? I ponder over much about the rules and lines in the sand which are being used to twist panties in the social justice warrior arena. If they made sense, it could be mapped, it would be one thing, but I can't seem to find where the lines are. Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna feel this. I'm gonna feel this. It's because this is a dance of manners, and the whole point is to make it the entire rules of the dance as elusive as possible, so that you can show up other people. It's as simple as that.
It's
So
Calvin Ball. It's a massive game of Calvin Ball.
It is Calvin Ball. You missed the 23rd base.
Well, you missed the fact that you put Aunt Sophie below the salt. So now that you no longer get her inheritance, and whatever, because that has become the new offensive thing to do. It's just essentially just a dance of social betters trying to outwit each other. Well, so-called social betters with bullshit. Just a bunch of social manners. There's no morality has some logic to it, some reason, some rules. This doesn't. It doesn't. It's just manners.
Oh gosh, can I make a little bit of a thing towards the cake situation or South Carolina? Right now,
the cake is a lie.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Right now, the situation with the Confederate flag in parts of South Carolina has gotten to the point where it's gone full Streisand effect. It's like it's to a situation where they're like, oh, don't have the flag anywhere. Don't take it down. Don't do it. And now like you can sell those in places here. People will just like sort of make them in-house now. because of all this, because it's in such high demand, because everybody's been saying, don't fucking do it, don't fly the Confederate flag anymore. And now you can't put the genie back in the goddamn bottle anymore. So if you wanted to say get a Confederate flag wedding cake for your gay wedding, it might not be as difficult as you would imagine, depending upon what part of the state you were in.
I think that's just excellent. I think that's excellent.
Depending upon, like, if you're in, say, like Charleston, if you ask the right people, if you know where to go, you probably could find somebody willing to make that cake for you, because there's a lot of people who are gay in Charleston, or who are really, really pro.
This is what the rainbow Confederate flag is for, surely.
And the thing is that there's also areas just outside of the main city area where it's really fucking country, and they would have no problems just doing that on the cake. I'm just saying.
All right. Mustafa Khan writes, "Hello everyone, I am Mustafa Khan. I follow the men's rights movement and have studied gender from a variety of perspectives, including religion and Islam in particular. I monitor feminist propaganda and power-grabbing politics in the global south or economically developing countries, in particular South Asia and Bangladesh and other Muslim-majority countries. My view is that feminism is like tobacco companies in the West decades ago, where they will still have a market, while they still have a market, they see the hotbed of future expansion of the franchise to be in developing countries. Feminism in Muslim countries often comes with an imperial agenda. It's married to progressivism, neoliberalism, statist socialism, etc. Those who are from Muslim countries and have studied Western Orientalism of the 19th century know that the real root of modern racism by imperialists is the leftist progressive assimilationist view of civilizing the inferior peoples and remaking the world in the image of Western elites. When Gloria Steinem travels to India, I smell the old imperialist agenda of trying to nation-build other societies from a condescending view of Western cultural superiority. This social engineering from the West is one that makes many in the Muslim world angry. In any case, in terms of systems theory, I look at our society from that perspective and trends in history. It's inevitable that the establishment will eventually favor a co-opted version of men's rights and anti-feminism once a critical mass is achieved. It's the equivalent of dealing with Martin Luther King, because otherwise the power will go to Malcolm Chavez and armed African Americans. That's how the establishment always controls the backlash. That's why a lot of Muslim imams are now funded by West in order to control the narrative and change Islam from within. This is how the Roman Empire co-opted Christianity and tailored it to fit the Roman Empire. Anyway, what do you think will happen with feminism in the future globally? Anyone want to take a stab at that? We discuss any topic here.
Well, I mean, I was just going to make a comment that the idea of going to another culture and inject an ideology in it is it's something that I find really interesting, because I talked about it with a history professor a lot at school, and he basically coined it, or it's called the liberal dilemma, because you have like this, or the liberal's dilemma. It's like a conundrum where you have like this moral thing that you want to do, which is basically bring liberation to women and and homosexuals and various other like groups, but at the same time you're going into a place where people's culture might get in the way of that, specifically Muslim culture. And so I guess then some people must have that sort of got that ball rolling. Something must have found a way around that liberal dilemma, or the liberal conundrum. But that was the only thing. I was just going to comment on that.
Well, this could make a great overall show topic. The idea of a sort of a neo-imperialism in terms of progressive politics. And I mean, not that these countries don't have problems, but I think mostly their problems are lack of resources, and maybe we should just leave them alone. But anyway, Jesse O writes, "Hey Badgers, Jesse O again. Just thought of another question. Hope there's no cap to how many I can ask. As we all know, the further and further we force our way into the mainstream and continually challenging the narrative and bringing the truth to the world to see, anti-Gamergate will continue to do whatever they can to save themselves. My question is, how will Gamergate handle the eventual question of what? You want these people to be unemployed? That will be asked when we get close to winning and pushing them out. They will lose their jobs as they're far too toxic to have around. Living, breathing, poison pill shits won't be hireable. Will Gamergate hammer home they come from privilege themselves or something else? Not all of them have that luck and could very well never work again. So the question could be difficult so as not to come off as heartless. Just wondering. Thanks. So in the poison pill, actually, it wasn't poison pill shit, it was poison pill. In Congress, it's impossible to get a bill passed without others attaching things to it. If someone doesn't want a bill to pass, they attach another that is something guaranteed to fail. That's called a poison pill in Congress. All right. So the question is, will Gamergate go all the way to make people who are anti-Gamergate unemployable?
I think some of them already are. I think Alex Lifshitz is essentially unemployable now.
Yeah.
And there are others who are only employable in the context of what they're doing, which is social justice. And once social justice goes out of fashion, they're just going to have to find a new gig. You know, I don't know that I feel a whole lot of sympathy. Nobody's job is secure in this economy. Nobody's job is secure in the way jobs used to be 30, 40 years ago, right? There's just very, very few people who work at the same company for 35 or 40 years. You know, essentially they're just going to have to find something else to do. Monica Lewinsky found something else to do. She found a way to make money after her extremely egregious abandonment by feminists who should have, by their own values, lambasted Clinton and championed her, but instead they called her a slut and insisted that she was the one who had the power in the relationship because Clinton was useful to them. Like, even she found work, even she found things to do. So I'm not that concerned. Anybody who is going to end up completely unemployable after all of this blows over has nothing to offer other than social justice crap.
All right.
Well, the situation that we're in right here is that we're not even going after every single social justice warrior, though. We're talking about, I mean, I think that what ends up happening is that we highlight the things that they did that are unethical and even breach the policies of their workplace. We're criticizing these people for not doing their jobs to the fullest extent. The thing is it's not because they're social justice warriors, it's because them being a social justice warrior has interfered with their ability to do their job, and they wouldn't do their job. And if somebody's not doing their job, I don't think that they should be employed in the job that they're being employed in currently. I mean, that's, especially in journalism, it's not in a situation where you have somebody who's working fast food and, you know, there's a fry cook and maybe they burned the fries a little bit. This information, or at least, especially when it's regular journalists and not game journalists, when they're putting out information that is inaccurate, that has serious repercussions for the world, for everyone who receives that misinformation. So if you're not doing your job, you don't deserve to be employed there. That's all I have to say. So I don't really have any sympathy for them.
Okay, so here's the final letter that I like to read out. Just scroll into it. Scrolling, right. Scrolling past it, going back. Okay. Dear Badgers, I'd love for you to do an interview with Harry Copito about why he's decided to help you with your case. It could be a way of getting accurate information out to many who would otherwise wouldn't hear about it or would only hear the slanders. Further, it would be specifically reaching an audience of people like myself who have an established lifelong habit of taking action when they see an injustice, potentially generating even more good publicity and support. Eric H. Well, I think that actually would be a good idea. The only problem that I have with it would be he is an elderly gentleman, so sometimes it takes him a while to arrive at the point. Then again, Karen also has the same problem.
Oh, yeah, but I'm also elderly, so...
Oh, you're not fucking elderly, lady. You
not
have no
a gentleman, though. Not a gentleman by a long shot. But definitely elderly.
Right.
Yeah.
You're trans elderly, are you?
What? I'm 44. I'm almost 45.
I can hear your partner in the background saying, "No, shut up, woman."
No, he's playing Team Fortress 2, so.
The supreme gentleman.
Oh wait, no, that was Brian saying, "Shut up."
I was.
Yeah. She's old kin. Karen is old kin.
I'm ancient. I'm 5 years older than dirt. I'm just old.
All
I
right.
think the men's rights movement just like ages you.
Yeah, it does. Well, it definitely makes you, larger than you would otherwise be because of stress eating, perhaps. Maybe not everyone. Maybe just
drinking.
Drinking. It's the drinking with me.
Okay, so I have like a 4-page letter to Mike. Well, partly to Mike.
What?
No, I think it's to all of everybody, but there's more of the sexual desire seems to be directed at Mike. So, shall I read this 4-page letter while we wait for people to arrive? Because I sent them links, and there are 3 of them, but they haven't come in yet. 3 people who decided they wanted to come on the show because this is a call-in show, and they haven't come in yet. So let's just read this letter by Joe Fish. Dear Honey Badgers, hello. Allison, you'll be glad to know my name is Joe Fish, and nearly impossible for you to mispronounce. I was the one who was almost on the call-in show top when its previous topic is you, but missed my cue to jump in. I hope you like the fan art I made. My thoughts are scattered, and there aren't too many things I would like to say to all of you. On top of that, my writing style tends to be extremely wordy, so I've never been able to fit what I've wanted to say into a succinct letter. So I'm going to try to be as brief as possible and only put it... Okay, all right. I've been following you guys and listening to your shows since the Calgary debacle. Nearly every evening has been spent diving into your back catalog while I played video games by my lonesome. It's very lovely getting to know you all in this one-sided manner, but I would like to contribute to your cause if possible. I'm a minor patron, but since I'm unemployed at the moment, I don't have a lot of money to give. I just graduated college in May 2014 with a degree of art, hoping to become a game designer. But there have been a lot of snags in my dream. When Gamergate exploded, it was a major paradigm shift in the way I saw the world. It's been difficult for me psychologically. I also have acute anxiety disorder, like many of your fans apparently, and I won't go into the details. Hi, Mr. Fish. I see you there. Okay, everyone who's Yobiax, I'm gonna have to mute you because you're making lots of noise. I'm gonna finish this letter and then we'll take Joe. Mr. Fish.
It's actually my letter.
Oh, it's Yobiax's letter? No, it's yours. Joe Fish's.
Yes.
Wait. Yes, I did that right. It is Joe. Got 2 letters from Joe's this evening.
Yeah.
It's an excellent name.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not even going to go further into that.
Give Joe a little bit of sympathy, Allison.
Yes, I have a lot of sympathy for people named Joe. Okay. Do you want me to continue reading this, or just read the really juicy bits that are directed at Mike?
I don't even remember what I wrote, but I think a lot of it is about like talking about how I got into Gamergate, and it goes into like Zoe Quinn and Aaron Joni, and I can't tell if can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I just turned my mic off because there's a lot of feedback. So
oh, okay.
Maybe I'll start with, so when in April, when I heard what Allison had said at that feminist panel, and said very plainly that she was a men's rights activist, my mind was blown again. I had never heard anyone say they were a men's rights activist. Dun, dun, dun. Let alone a woman say it. MRA used to be in the same derogatory sense that conservative or Republican was used to dismiss arguments, something that I've always hated. But for the connotations behind MRA... Go ahead. I know you want to. Do it, Brian. Okay, I guess I've
right-wing conservatives.
Behind MRA were so much worse for no discernible reason, to the point where I'd never actually seen anyone who identified as one. Then when I watched Dr. Random Cam and Karen Strawn and listened to Honey Badger Radio, I fell in love with all of you. You are the real underdogs. Gamergate seemed like playing life on hard mode, but you guys are on the next difficulty level, attacking bullshit in our society on a much grander scale. I've never seen a group of people so intelligent, funny, kind, honest, passionate, and brave, with integrity to stand by what they know is right, no matter what the consequences. People like that are so rare to find and make me unbelievably happy because they make me feel so much less alone. All right. I think I'll... Oh, that's very nice.
It is. It's really
You
nice.
get all the hugs.
Yes, you get all the hugs.
Several.
Where's the
Many of
juice?
them.
You promised me juice.
Yes, there.
The juice. P.S. Declaring your attraction to guys on the... I'm sure this could be massively awkward. Declaring your attraction to guys on the internet is therapeutic for someone who isn't able to express in real life. But I have a huge crush on Dr. Ranimer Cam. This might be obvious to him at this point, but if it's not, let me make it perfectly clear. He's welcome to take my virginity at any time. I'm willing to break out the pom-poms and get enthusiastic consent if necessary. His videos make me feel like a light-headed schoolgirl to the point where I need write angsty poetry about unrequited love in order to get him out of my system. This is actually very annoying. Help me. I'm perfectly okay with being friend-zoned too. Most of my fantasies involve non-sexual stuff like forming a band with him anyway. No, seriously, Mike, if you want to form a band, hit me up. We can call the first album Gloria Steinem's Mental Health Problems, and it will be glorious.
Look, this is all perfectly normal. You're only human.
It's like the life cycle of Joe's.
Who wouldn't give up their virginity to Dr. Ranimer Cam? Really?
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Those who don't have it anymore?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
never
I
come
would have my hymen repaired just to give it up to Dr. Ranimer Cam.
Oh my.
If I had that kind of money. And if
I'm sure we
my
can figure
hymen,
something out.
Probably my hymen, like there's nothing left of it.
Well, you're very good with DIY. We could surely figure something out.
I could like maybe like put a stitch in there. I do so yeah.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
What? I used to give me a mirror. I used to wax down there all
Okay, all right, enough.
It's not the same thing.
This is horrifying.
I used to give myself Brazilian.
Why don't you just fake it with a bit of goat liver? Just shove it up there and just pretend.
goat liver?
Oh, this isn't even gonna work.
'Cause it'll bleed. It'll bleed. Then you'll get sort of the sensation, it's sort of like the romanticism of losing your virginity.
They have like a hymen kit thing where you just sort of put like a barrier thing there.
Why don't I just
puffy
until I'm like almost on my period and I'm really
Oh
big.
my God! All right.
And then there will be bleeding.
I
The
think
thirst is real, ladies and gentlemen. The thirst is real.
The thirst is real.
Well,
How did this become about your freaking smelly
Vagina?
gaping hole?
You're the worst.
How did this become about that?
I am the worst. I am the worst.
It was supposed to be about Joe and Joe's effervescent love for Mike.
I fucking ship it.
Shameless, Allison. That's why.
And then you just have to schlep yourself in there.
It's love expressed through schlepping.
It's love expressed. Oh my.
Welcome to the silly place, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yes, we're definitely there.
Okay, so we have 3 guests on, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So who are we taking first? Who
Well, did you want to add anything to that, Joe? Because that was your letter.
Yeah.
This is really
You got like adorable canines there. So you like got the vampire thing going on.
Yeah, that picture is old and.
You do have very nice.
Thank you.
And a very nice jaw.
Yeah.
And quite a nice Adam's apple.
Many people of our acquaintance who might like you to bite them in the neck.
Yeah, your Adam's apple is just there, but it's not like huge or anything. It's just.
Are we making you uncomfortable, sir?
Sargon of Akkad just uploaded a video today where he did the
Bit
full
someone in the neck?
on his face, right? He was on camera for the whole thing, and Rachel and I were waxing poetical about his kingly good looks, his kingly beard, and
he is quite regal, yes.
Oh, he kind of reminds me of a young Orson Welles. Back when Orson Welles played Macbeth, it was black and white movies and stuff, right? He's got that kind of gravitas, that sort of presence, like he's burly and king. He could he could play
He
Robert
speaks with
Kraft.
such authority. Oh gosh.
All right, we got people who
Anyway,
are
talking this way about his physical. We were totally objectifying.
This sounds like you're
Now we're
starting some sort
objectifying
of
Yes.
some sort of erotic fiction here.
I was saying that he would look really great with like a goblet in one hand of mead and like a dead animal in the other.
Yeah, like
Just
a goat leg or something, roasted
Yeah,
goat.
something.
Yeah, because
Alright.
I mean, it's just so. This is just the way, like, women objectify men too. We do it, of course, and often we fixate on small features or particular features of a given man, like his Adam's apple or his canine teeth or
His penis.
No, never. I never really. That's
Okay, enough.
I love a man's penis only because
Yeah, but-
he's attached to it.
Okay, all right, Joe.
Yes.
Now that we have spun out significant amounts of spaghetti, would you like some pasta? No. Would you like to say something to us or have introduce the
Or
topic
have
of
we, like,
conversation?
have we completely scared you away?
Yeah, I'm a little brain frozen right now. My letter did. I wanted to talk about, since it's like Gamergate's anniversary. It's like the whole origin story again, and like reanalyzing it. But because my letter went into, and Allison skipped that part, but it was about how after that initial Zoe post thing, everyone pretty much just ignored it on both sides, even though, like, they talked about how Zoe's irrelevant and all this stuff, and it was about, like, we don't really care about her cheating and blah blah blah, which is true. I didn't really care about her cheating. It was just like really. It was like all the psychological manipulation and how the media portrayed Aaron as an abuser almost, and it was just that bothered me the most.
It was clear from the chat logs that she was the abusive party.
Yes, exactly, and nobody, even on Gamergate's side, wanted to talk about it, and I don't know, that just always bothered me because that was where the censorship came from, and the amount of control she had to censor like the entire fucking internet was just mind-blowing. I just couldn't. It like.
I know that amount of power.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if like you had the power to just like kind of say my feelings are hurt, and then like nobody on the internet could discuss you anywhere on the internet, even on 4chan.
It was surreal. I couldn't believe it. But like, I just felt so bad for Aaron, and I really wanted to defend him because I read crack.com, well, I used to, and they had Zoe write an article for that, and they kept writing more articles slamming Gamergate, and this was back when I didn't even really understand what it was, but I read the Zoe post, and then I kind of understood, and then I tried to defend him, and that's when I got censored, and it was just a really surreal experience, and it just like kind of changed my whole worldview.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Okay, so this guy, he's in a relationship with this woman who, by her own admission and her own definition, raped him multiple times. She spends a great deal of time gaslighting him, blaming him for the abuse that she's heaped on him, essentially offloading all the responsibility for it onto him because he's just not enough. He just didn't do enough, right? And she couldn't help fucking other guys because, you know, he just wasn't enough. You know, he just wasn't there for her or whatever the fuck it was, right? And all of this stuff, right? So you have this post where you have an obviously abusive person who is trying to play the victim, right? And then this guy, you know, he puts up this post, right? And he's just like this was a completely fucked up situation, and this person is someone that I would warn other people to maybe not get too involved with, right? And And here's the thing. Then you have someone like Naomi Wolf, right, who claims to have a history with sexual violence, okay? Her history with sexual violence, she wrote about it in Newsweek. And it was an older professor who she was like very, very, very enamored of, as far as, you know, like she just really admired him so much, blah, blah, blah. And she is such a touchy-feely person. She is such an effusive, oily, unctuous, you know, handsy kind of person. Like the moment that we met, she put her hand, you know, or her arm around me, and, you know, and the whole bit. She's just very, very, you know, touchy-feely. And so I can imagine that this older professor, when he invited her for dinner, and she probably gushed at him, and, you know, and put her hands all over him, and the whole bit, he probably got the wrong idea. And so they're in his apartment, and they're sitting on the sofa, and he puts his hand on her thigh, and she was so disgusted and so traumatized by this that she actually, according to her, threw up, and her entire Newsweek article read like a Harlequin romance, right? And she named this guy, right? And she essentially said that this professor is like a predator who sexually assaulted me, right? And that's okay, right? That's perfectly fine for her to do that. But for Erin Joney to, with proof, with all these screen caps of these chat logs and everything, right, to actually say, like, this woman wronged me, that's not okay. Not fucking okay.
Yeah.
Right? And if anybody's interested in it, they're just shaming her for having a sex life. Like, I'm sorry, but I would never shame anybody for having a sex life. You just have, nobody has any, I don't even fucking have any idea how many sexual partners I've had. I've had so many, right? I'm the last person who's going to shame anybody for having a sex life, right? But what she did to him was just gross. It was just fucking gross.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me was when I read his post, he seemed like such a really, really, really nice guy. Like I actually believed his morals, and like he actually seemed like
like a sensitive dude.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, the way that the media painted him, it wasn't even that she cheated on him. Like, that wasn't even the issue. It was the psychological abuse. Like, you didn't even have to, like, the cheating was just, it was pretty much irrelevant.
It was the fact that she blamed him for her cheating.
Yes, exactly. And all this other stuff, it fucked up stuff.
Yeah, it's a pretty egregious situation.
But this story that you talked about earlier on this show was like that same, about the woman who pushed him into suicide, is like the same thing but worse. So
yeah,
it makes it even seem like,
no, it's total gaslighting. It's total domination through, not even through dominating, but it's sort of almost topping from the bottom.
Creepy manipulation.
And then
using your victimhood to dominate the other person.
But then she makes like a charity for suicidal people.
Yeah. Yeah, she totally capitalized on that shit.
That is just.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't get back into that because that will be like another half an hour. In fact, I think we're probably going to have to actually cover that more in depth and just let everybody get the smelling salts and the fainting couches out and just make all the groans or that about this situation that they want to get it out. And I don't mean to mock it. I mock everything, like everything, but I know that it's an egregious situation and it is beyond the pale. But Yovi has been waiting.
Yes, we can move on.
Yes, adorable canines.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Yovi.
Hey, Allison, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Okay, great.
I'm muted weirdly there.
Hey, Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I haven't sneezed for over half an hour, so I'm doing okay. The antihistamines are like making me a little sleepy, though.
Oh goodness! I hope you're not doing the et al. Thing here.
I'm just gonna say hi, sexy boy, because because that spelled backwards is just difficult to pronounce.
Yobi Axis. You just Allison said it right.
Yobi.
Unfucking believable. I got it right once.
Yeah. Can you say it? Can you say it, Karen? Yobi Axis.
Yobi Axis. Yeah, I can say it, but it just seems silly when I could say sexy boy.
Okay.
No,
all right.
that sounds even sillier though.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about this one topic that it's a men's rights issue, but I never seem to hear it in any men's rights board like the Reddit or on YouTube. I never seem to hear it anywhere. And that's the topic of alimony. Alimony is when a married couple, when they divorce, the higher earning spouse pays the less earning spouse after for a certain period of time, and maybe in some cases they pay them permanently, which is awful.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts about what they think about alimony and if it should be outlawed, because to me that's the most the biggest men's rights issue that I want to tackle. That's the one thing that I want to get rid of in our society completely. I know like Scandinavia, even though it's a feminist country, they don't have alimony after their marriages, and so maybe they're doing something right there, but everything else in that part of the world is just completely fucked up. That it's
the reason they don't have alimony is because they have such a massive welfare state. Essentially, you can not work there and live. You're not even scraping by. In the Scandinavian countries, Denmark's really, really good for like nobody is homeless unless they want to be in Denmark, right? In fact, if you find a homeless person in Denmark, they are dressed exactly the same as the homeless guy in the last town, in a tuxedo jacket with tails, with army medals all over them, and sort of a captain, a harbor pilot's hat, and they're pushing an old-fashioned pram full of their belongings, right? I mean, it's almost like a uniform for them because it's sort of a chosen way of doing things, right? Or at least that's the way it was 20 years ago when I was there. And so essentially, you don't have alimony in those places because people are taken care of by the government. And they're taken care of by the government because about 77 to 80 cents of every dollar that you earn and spend goes to the government in taxes. So when you buy a can of soup that's $4, right, $3 of that is going to the government in value-added taxes and sales taxes and other forms of tax, right?
Yeah. And I know how people are with taxes here. They hate it. They want
to.
They want to kill that more than alimony, of course.
Yeah. So, but essentially, like as far as I'm concerned, alimony does serve a purpose, and I would say this: whether the higher earning spouse or the earning spouse. I'm not going to say the higher earning because the earning spouse. If the couple agreed that one would stay home and the other would work, right? Regardless of which was which, I think that for 6 months to a year, if the earning spouse is the one who initiated the divorce, right? Up to 6 months to a year, they should continue the support until that person has secured a job, right? But that person needs to have secured a job by the end of the year. And I don't care whether you can have a master's degree. If you have to work at McDonald's, that's what you're going to do, right? And so I can see alimony in certain situations for a very, very brief period of time, a very sort of transitionary period. I can't see alimony, I can't see the point of it longer than maybe a year, and I can't see the point of it if both spouses have a job.
Okay. So I wanted to thank you. Yeah. Was there anything more you wanted to bring up at all, Yobi Axel?
I'm afraid I can't exactly agree, really, because what if the couple, the divorcing couple, they hate each other so much that they don't want anything to do with each other, and the guy, if they divorce, maybe the guy, he's pretty much forced to just stick with her. Well, not with her, but be stuck with her, paying alimony to a person that he hates.
Well, but only for 6 months to a year till she gets a job.
That's and it would be the same for a woman if it was the woman who was the earning spouse and the man.
And if the lower earner initiated the divorce, they get nothing.
Yeah, if the person who's not earning anything, if she initiates or he initiates the divorce, you walk away with nothing, right? You better have secured a job before you file those papers, right? That's as far as I'm concerned, because like when you get married, you're making a promise, right? And if part of that promise, if part of that agreement is that one of you will stay home and one of you will work, right? I do think that if the person who's working, right, is the one who initiates the divorce, there should be some sort of stopgap for the other partner until they can get on their feet. But like I said, this whole bullshit with 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, oh, they need to go back to school. No, they don't. They don't. They can go and work at fucking McDonald's. I don't care if it's a step down in their lifestyle. I don't care if they end up having to live with fucking roommates that they don't even know, and they're working 2 part-time jobs, one at McDonald's and one at Tim Hortons. I don't care, right? You should be self-supporting.
Okay, so we got to move on, just because this is a situation where we're running up on 3 hours now, and I eventually want to go to bed.
Oh man, I wanted to speak a little bit more, but okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I apologize, but this is a really packed show because people like to send us mail. Not that people shouldn't send us mail, but you do send us a lot of mail.
Okay.
People really send a lot of mail. They do.
Yeah, Guinness Walker, did you want to take 5 minutes to say something?
Can I be heard?
Yes. Yeah, just speak up louder because you're quite faint.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess since I only have 5 minutes, I won't take up too much of your time, and I'll just ask a real simple question, and that is, do you guys have any advice for a young anti-feminist going into college in Canada?
In Canada? Oh, God.
What are you taking?
Specifically Southern Canada. If you guys have ever heard of it, it's literally the most southern city in the entire country.
Lethbridge?
Windsor.
Oh, Windsor.
No, Windsor.
Windsor's not that bad.
Yeah, see, that's what I've heard, so I'm kind of enthusiastic, especially because I've also heard that college isn't as bad as university, and I'm going into college.
Yeah,
and I'm
community colleges, tech schools, things like that are always going to be better than university.
Right. And I'm just taking general studies, so.
I would just like keep your head down and like if you want to be an activist in college, that's a different story. But if you just want to survive college,
basically.
Yeah, just keep your head down.
Off campus.
If you have a mandatory women's studies course, just agree with the professor on everything. Write the papers that you think she wants to read, right? And do your time and get out of there. That's what I would suggest. Because you're not as one person unless you're willing to really commit, unless you're willing to pull a Sage Gerard and really put everything into it. I mean, so you're a full-time student and you're a full-time activist and community organizer, essentially.
Right.
If you're not going to do that, then my best advice would just be to keep your head down, don't make any waves, tell people what they want to hear, and count down the hours until you're done.
All right, well, I appreciate that. Before I go, can I real quick throw in one more thing?
Sure.
So this is only the second time I've ever actually encountered anybody within the MRM or done any hangouts. So I just hope I could shill myself real quick that anybody who wants to do hangouts or whatever, just get in touch with me, Guinness Walker, or you can also find me on Facebook. I don't care. You can know my name. My name's Eric D. Hicks. I don't give a shit. Whatever. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. I don't do anything, but just get a hold of me. Maybe we can hang out.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Guinness, Yobi Axes, and Joe Fish. I like your name, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh no! Thanks you guys for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for caring enough to come on, and thank you for everybody who sent in mail. I'm actually going to get Anna to really quick read one last mail, and then we're gonna take off.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do this thing that we are doing.
I won't die in the middle of reading it due to the sudden plague I've been fighting.
You have the plague?
Yeah, I've had the plague.
I could tell that you're stuffed up. Your nose is stuffed up. So,
I'm very plaguey. So, all right, this is in relation to the trans sissy culture show we had a few weeks ago, a week ago, whatever it was. All right, the title is by Sissy Carey, and Sissy here looking to shed some light on sissy culture. Hi, Anna. I was unsure who I should send this email to. I got your email at your website, so I figured I'd send it to you. I enjoyed the discussion on sissy culture that you guys recently had on HBR, but there are some things you got wrong that I wanted to clear up. The men involved in this are willing participants, not victims. It's not that we feel pressured to engage in this sort of activity, or that it's something we endure in order to get attention from women. We actually want to be dressed up in girly clothes. Or in the case of the guys who like to be kicked in the balls, which isn't really part of sissy culture, but I have seen people who are into both, they actually like getting kicked in the balls. I heard you mention that you've been asked to do some of these things in the past and have turned them down. If it's not your thing, then it's perfectly understandable. It's obviously not for everyone. But if your only reason for not wanting to do it is that you're afraid of the men involved are being victimized, I can assure you that you have nothing to worry about. I would be in heaven if someone as hot as you dressed me up like a girl. Someone else on the show, I think it might have been Karen, mentioned something about it possibly having to do with men being ashamed of their masculinity. That isn't correct. It is actually the opposite. There's nothing about sissy culture that shames masculinity. It's actually shaming men for failing to be masculine. Okay. The Dom usually mocks the sub for not being a real man, and so he has to be treated like a little girl. I think a lot of it has to do with playing on guys' insecurities about failing to be a man. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think we explore a lot of aspects of ourselves through fantasy and roleplay that we kind of suppress in real life. And I think our insecurities are just one of those things. It doesn't mean that I hate my masculinity or anything like that, any more than my interest in violent video games means that I actually want to go out and hurt people. Sexual kink roleplay is similar to video games. In that, it's just fantasy, and the whole point of fantasy is that you get to be something other than what you normally are in your day-to-day life. I think your guest who mentioned it having something to do with holding femininity in high regard was correct. For as long as I can remember, I've always been infatuated with girly, feminine things. Some random facts about me. I'm heterosexual. I don't consider myself trans, but I'm supportive of people who are. I wasn't raised by a hyper-feminist or any kind of feminist mother. I'm not a feminist and not an SJW, and I support Gamergate. And later he mentions that, sure, you can read my email on there if you'd like. I just want to clarify that there is a part of the fetish that involves a humiliation fetish. There are people who are into humiliation but who aren't into worship of femininity, and then there are people who are into femininity without the humiliation. And I think sissies are what you get when you have a person who is into both. I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to hold femininity in high regard while at the same time using it as a form of humiliation, but I think of it as a plot hole in a movie you really like. You just kind of ignore it. Thanks for reading my email and getting back to me.
All right, I wanted to say something. I think part of the idea that this is might be toxic, and I think anybody who's engaged in extreme behaviors might want to consider. It could be a fetish. It could be you might have some toxic things going on. If it's from a place of being perfectly healthy and you just want to do it, then you'll just be like, no, that's not me. I'm gonna go dress in a dress. But this idea that a woman is punishing you for not being sufficiently manly, how does she know what is sufficiently manly? And when did you learn to think that women would know such a thing?
You know, and I kind of he said that there was sort of a conflict between you know, how sort of the plot hole between if you elevate femininity but then you associate humiliation with it. I think that is that would sort of be like the peasant who feels really uncomfortable and embarrassed when he's forced into a nobleman's finery. Just it is kind of humiliating. It's not who you are, right? It's above you, and you may look up to it, and you may even fantasize about being that. But when you have to put on the finery, it kind of feels off, and I think that that's maybe where that plot hole is coming from. That it's not actually a plot hole, but it's more sort of if you elevate femininity to that degree, and you're being humiliated for not being masculine enough, it's almost like you're not man enough, but you'll never be a woman. But here, put on these women's clothes. You know, put on the clothes of your betters, right? And then I'm going to humiliate you and tell you that you're worthless, or tell you that you're not a real man, or tell you whatever, right? And or show you, or whatever. And I think that might be that it's not actually a plot hole. It's just not quite something that people might, if there's some element of that in there, that it's not something that people might pick up on. So
hey, Rachel, slide on in there. Or not.
Mute button problem. Damn it! Mute button problem.
Bit you.
So, okay. So anyway, what I was going to say is this. I really hesitate to shame this guy for liking what he likes. To be perfectly honest, a lot of things that you do in role play, a lot of things you do, especially when you like submission. A lot of it doesn't really make any logical sense on paper. It really doesn't. You kind of have to be there, and you kind of have to be going through all the things that are there. You end up liking what you like, regardless of what really makes sense to you. It's sort of a way of kind of going through all of these different things that we have in society, or the things that you're going through mentally, and just you're surrendering to another person in a way. It's escapism of a certain kind, and it's hard to, I think, explain to people on the outside what it is that you're doing. So I mean, on the one hand, there might be a possibility for things to go really, really badly, and for you to enter into a toxic relationship with somebody. In this, it doesn't mean that it happens all of the time, and it doesn't mean that every kind of relationship like this, or every kind of role-playing of this nature, is bad.
Yeah, I don't think either of us are saying that. But shaming would be to say, you are, insert some epithet or insult and outside of the realm of being human. Saying that this might be a dynamic that you want to look into is not the same as shaming. That is criticism, perhaps, but it's not.
I think it's also sort of a curiosity and a wanting to understand exactly what's going on there. Obviously, I have a desire to understand how people tick and what makes them work and all of that. And I have my own proclivities that a lot of people aren't really into to the degree that I have been. Very few people go to work with black eyes from sex, and and I have had to do that in the past. And none of the customers ever say a word if you've got a big smile on your face instead of the salty, dried tracks of tears. And so essentially, people tend to like what they like with sex. They don't always examine it. I think that I've examined why I like what I like in that regard, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that after I climbed that tree, I really loved how sore my muscles were for the next 3 days. I mean, every time I moved, it was an
I
ache.
thought the tree sexual thing was a joke.
No, but I
cannot believe the perverts.
It's like when runners hit the wall and then they run through the wall.
Oh
and
my God!
Endorphins kick in, right?
Internalized mahogany. That was a joke. I can't.
It's not mahogany. It's fucking spruce.
Okay, well,
very splintery.
That's really splintery. Spruce.
Splintery.
But okay, but what I'm saying is that there's usually a motivation in there, and sometimes you can ferret it out and you can figure out why it is that you like those things. And sometimes the reason why is healthy and okay, and sometimes the reason why is maybe something that you should look at, right? And
it's sort of a question of are you getting enough? Are you finding yourself getting enough on a regular basis? or does it, or does it escalate and escalate every time, and you're always
And if it's
looking for the next best thing, and you never get there? That's when it looks, and it's like any other addiction. It's important to know the difference between a healthy pursuit and
Oh well,
when it becomes
like
problematic.
climbing a tree.
Yes.
no, but, oh
Getting
my
the
god,
rocks off.
no, but
Nothing's ever big enough.
I climbed that tree. I tried to cut it down. I climbed down, and my muscles were sore, and it was a sense of, I survived something, right? I got through something, right? Like I'm kind of strong, and I'm not fragile, and all of those things, right? So a lot of the stuff that I am into as far as sex goes has to do with me essentially
Rigorous.
rejecting the idea of fragility.
That's interesting. I have also been sore, but mostly it's just been because of a lot of, like thigh action.
Oh yeah, no, I remember once, probably the most exciting sexual experience of my life. The next 2 weeks, I looked like I had been dragged behind a bus.
TMI Thursdays, everyone.
Yeah, indeed. I could see the numbers going down. It's like, yeah, fuck this nonsense.
Yeah,
Well, maybe it's because we're beyond like 3 hours.
Well, no, but it's just, it's because in the moment you don't feel you don't feel the injuries happening to you.
No.
Right? In the
This is
moment,
true.
you're just exhilarated and you're pumped up and you're just like excited and it's just everything feels good, and then afterwards you're like limping and
I'm not quite as intense as you are, and far more shy, so I'm not going to say anything more. But I think this is a good place to end. Roll off
I would think, yeah, it's probably
into the night.
You're putting all your dirty laundry up on the show.
Yes, we are. Kevin.
Yeah, but it's not dirty right-wing laundry, is it?
It is dirty. Everything is right wing to me. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
I know my accent's awful.
It'd be hard not to be right-wing to you, Kevin Logan.
You're all left wings. No, it's.
You're all right wing.
Okay, come on, guys. He's not here to defend himself.
I know. I'm just having a.
It's not really very nice.
Well, he's just taking the piss. That's how the British say it.
Yeah, that's how they call it, isn't it, Mike? Taking the piss.
Taking the piss.
Over in Birmingham it is, yes. Taking the piss. Speaking of which, yes,
hey, Mike.
Kill that. GG in Birmingham. It's
Oh yes,
happening.
that's right. We nearly forgot.
The old joint stock at 12 midday on Saturday.
Is there still time for me to get you a little clip?
You can get me that thing in. If you can get it by tomorrow before Kevin, that would be good.
And,
Yeah,
and also Gigi and Phoenix.
Can you
Can't
do? We
forget
already
about
did the Gigi and Phoenix friends.
Oh, we did?
Mike, can
Shit.
you do Kevin Logan?
No.
No, only I can do it. I'm gonna claim it. I'm gonna copyright it.
Oh my God, that was.
I want a quarter every time I do it.
You get a quarter every time you do it. Is this the thing now?
Okay, everybody, sing "Happy Birthday."
To who? Oh, because of
To
James.
Bibi and James.
No, it's because it's not just that, but it's because that song is copyrighted.
No. Then we can't sing it.
Yeah.
No, it's no longer. I thought they were removing the copyrights for that.
Oh yeah.
I thought they were.
Who?
I can't remember. Whoever owns it, I can't remember.
Yeah, no, it was some random person owned the copyright to that, and so that's why you never really heard it on TV shows and stuff.
Okay, don't test the luck.
We
No,
cannot.
I can't afford it. No, I don't want this show to fall into the Google hole that this certain unnamed show fell into. Then we had to do it twice.
Oh
which I
dear.
actually enjoyed, but I'm
All
sure
right.
nobody else did.
All right, so Gigi in Birmingham. Sargon of
Yes.
Akkad is going to be there. That's why he showed his manly, kingly face, his glorious, wild and woolly beard.
And Milo!
Was so that people would be able to recognize him at the event. So Sargon will be there. Mike will be there.
I will be there with my GoPro. I just bought it today. It's the new
Excellent.
phone.
And Milo will be there, and
Milo
Alan
might be
Buhari.
there. Yeah, Milo's Milo.
Yeah, like last I heard, he was heading to New York City. So, but that was a few days ago. So he could be heading back because short trip
All right.
is kind of the thing.
Okay.
So
It'll
Don't
be
drink
alright.
Poison Kool-Aid.
Just breathe deep of the smell on this kerchief.
so let's get stuck into it.
What the fuck? Alright, whatever.
Oh, aren't we starting?
Oh, we're not starting anything.
Hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
I don't even understand this.
666 here, and today we're on this episode
Well, let's
of.
get stuck into it. Yes.
I'm
I
just a
started
complete
this
idiot.
series to
This is like the only one I want.
I began this series to dispel the lie that Elliot Rodger was a men's rights activist.
Activists.
Are we just like
Propaganda,
randomly,
toxic femininity, 8,308.
so we're just randomly going to different channels now?
Well, I mean, I'm waiting for you. Just like I don't know. Are we
I
done?
have a button.
Don't drink
That's
the poison
awesome.
Kool-Aid.
I don't
Deal
have.
dear.
Allison, I find it very interesting that you haven't stopped the show yet.
It must be misogyny.
Oh, teal deer. How's that?
Deal dear. Deal dear.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop the show now.
Okay.
Fucking ridiculous.
Are you prepared?
Guile
Please
theme from
stop the
Street
show.
Fighter 2. Down.
Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Until next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Until next time.